The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com. The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by XChair, the XChair office chair. XChairTom.com is the website, XChairTHOM.com. Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242 or visit tomsbeets.com. It's the Free Speech TV Fund Drive Week 2, and last week we were way behind, and we had a great Friday. I think we hit $14,000 on Friday, which is marvelous because we'd been doing $4,000. Well, we did $1,200, and $2,000 our first 2 days, and so we need to hit 10 grand a day, and we sort of caught up, but we're still about $20,000 down. For the whole fund drive as we go into this week. So we need to hit our $10,000 every day plus, an additional, say, $4,000. If we can have $14,000 days all week, then we'll be where we need to be. And that means we need a lot of help. We need a lot of folks calling in and making a lot of small gifts. Because that's how it works. That's how Bernie's campaign was funded. That's how this network is funded. And so if you want to be part of Free Speech TV, if you want to be a member of Free Speech TV, if you want to see this television network, this television show, the values, opinions, perspectives, policies that are reflected by, classic FDR progressive values here in the United States, if you want to see that and more of that, then call now, 877-378-8669. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number for Free Speech TV. It's serious stuff. The network has to raise this money. If it doesn't, the network stops. It's, obviously first they would go through some radical cutbacks, Secondly, they probably have to drop all their live programming and go back to just doing documentaries. And then third, they'd turn it off. So, I mean, that's process begins if we don't hit these goals. And you don't want to see that, and neither do I. So please call 877-378-8669. We've got some goodies for you, some special, or you can go to freespeech.org/donate. Some special gifts that you know, at different giving levels. They're the same as they were last week. With the $30 gift, you get the Is That True? Or did you hear that on Fox News? Refrigerator magnet. With a $72 gift, you get the Free Speech TV water bottle. With a $120 gift, or $10 a month for the next year, you get a book. You get the Thom Hartmann Reader, autographed by Tom. That's me. I'm guessing you figured that out. With a $20 a month gift for a year, or $240, you get Howard Zinn's A People's History book. This is I think, the best history of the United States that's ever been written. Howard Zinn was an absolute genius. And a DVD that goes along with it about the people's history of the United States. Plus, Reverend William Barber's book, the pastor from, I believe it's North Carolina, it might be South Carolina. But he's been a guest on our program a number of times, and the leader of the whole, moral, I think it was Moral Monday was how it started out, movement, and he is just doing great stuff. And he has a new book out. It's called The Third Reconstruction. And you're going to want to get and read this book. That's with a $240 gift. With a $360 gift, or $30 a month for a year, you get all of the books mentioned. My book, Howard Zinn's book, Reverend Barber's book, all of them, plus the DVD with the Howard Zinn book. That's with a $360 gift. It's the all books combo. And with a $480 gift, or $40 a month for a year, you get the Everything Kit, which is all the books that we just talked about. My book, Reverend Barber's book, Howard Zinn's book, the DVD for Howard Zinn's book, plus the Free Speech TV Fox News magnet. Is that true, or did you hear it on Fox News? Plus the water bottle. That's the $480 or $40 a month for a year gift level. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland. Boy, muscle memory there. Come to Portland, Oregon, and I do occasionally get back to D.C., but not enough to predictably organize a meeting. So come to Portland, and I'll take you to lunch. It's a great city to see. It's just a beautiful city, a beautiful part of the country, actually. Within a 1-hour drive from Portland, you can be in the mountains, you can be on a glacier, you can be on the seacoast, you can be in a desert, the high desert, you can be in a rainforest. You could be, on a river. It's and of course, keep Portland weird. When you come to Portland, you discover that the TV show Portlandia is actually a documentary. It's not a comedy, and because it's really what this city is like, and I love it. So anyhow, that's with a $1,000 gift. But it's not the gifts that are, the important thing. I mean, it's kind of cool to get, an autographed book and all that kind of stuff, and they make great gifts to give to other people. But really what's important here is to keep this television network going and thriving. If we can hit this $10,000 a day level, which is now $14,000 a day roughly for this whole week because of how far behind we are, if we can hit that, then we can do it. 877-378-8669. Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Greetings, my friends, patriots, lovers of democracy, truth, and justice, believers in peace, freedom, and the American way. Thom Hartmann here with you. Rob Reiner is tweeting, ripping children away from their parents is fascism. Embracing white nationalism throughout the world is fascism. Trying to destroy the free press and the rule of law is fascism. America, keep your eyes wide open. Donald Trump is wearing his racist, fascist badge with pride. Rob Reiner's a good guy. Well, I need not go into the whole story, but he's a good guy. And I noticed earlier in the week, actually I think this was over the weekend, no, it was last Friday, PC intern posted over at Democratic Underground, you know, what the blank, I'm saying blank, he or she spelled out, you know, the F word. Taking kids away from their parents to give them showers, incarcerating them, and then quoting the Bible to justify it, saying that it's the Democrats who are doing this, lying about everything else, profiting from the office of the presidency, condemning and vilifying our staunchest allies and then kowtowing to and praising the worst, most villainous dictators in the world. You know, people take to the streets in other countries when the transit fares are boosted 3 cents. Here, this orange U-tan can destroy humanity, and we watch the sports network and drink microbrewery beers. Meanwhile, no one will have a single solitary leg to stand on if he or she is accused of a crime, because the system for protecting us will have been destroyed. What is it going to take for the other two-thirds to rise up and say, we're mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore? That's a really good question, PC intern. It's a really good question. And perhaps later today, in all probability tomorrow, I want to get into in some detail what's going on in the rest of the world. The leader of Romania's governing party, some really interesting news there, stuff going on in Poland, stuff going on in Hungary. We're seeing Turkey, we're seeing European countries flipping fascist. So how does this happen? Milton Mayer wrote this book, and I've quoted from the book many times on this program over the years, perhaps not often enough, because, you know, we all should have it basically memorized by now. After World War II, Milton Mayer was a reporter in Chicago, and he hopped on a plane with, you know, got an assignment from his editor, went to Germany for a while. I don't think it was a whole year, but he went to Germany for some substantial period of time and interviewed in depth 10 people. And those 10 interviews are his book. They thought they were free, along with his commentary about it. And all 10 of these people, none of these 10 people were like Nazis. They didn't join the Nazi party. They were not, you know, they were just your average, quote, good German. There was a baker, there was a bricklayer, there was a professor, a bunch of them. And he asked them, how did this happen? In fact, when Mayer came back to the United States, in the introduction to his book, he says, now I see a little better how Nazism overcame Germany, not by attack from without or subversion from within, but with a whoop and a holler. It was what most Germans wanted, or under pressure of combined reality and illusion came to want. They wanted it, they got it, they liked it. He said, I came home a little bit afraid for my country. Keep in mind, this is 1954 he wrote this. I came back home a little afraid for my country, afraid of what it might want and get and like under combined pressure of reality and illusion. I felt and feel that it was not German man that I met, but man. He happened to be in Germany under certain conditions. He might be here under certain conditions. He might, under certain conditions, be me. If I and my countrymen ever succumbed to that concatenation of conditions, no constitution, no laws, no police, and certainly no army would be able to protect us from harm. So what's Milton Mayer talking about? Well, here's what the college professor said to him. These are the verbatim words of a long dead now, good German college professor, lived through World War II, just taught college from the beginning to the end. And this guy says, this separation of government from people, this widening of the gap, took place so gradually and so insensibly, each step disguised, perhaps not even intentionally, as a temporary emergency measure or associated with true patriotic allegiance or with real social purposes. And all the crises and reforms, and there were real reforms too, so occupied the people that they did not see the slow motion underneath of the whole process of government growing remoter and remoter. To live in this process is absolutely not to be able to notice it. Please try to believe me. Says this old German from the grave. Please try to believe me, and unless one has a much greater degree of political awareness, acuity than most of us ever had the occasion to develop, each step was so small, so inconsequential, so well explained, or on occasion regretted, that unless one were detached from the whole process from the beginning, unless one understood what the whole thing was in principle, after all these little measures that no patriotic German could resent, must someday lead to, one no more saw it developing from day to day than a farmer in the field sees the corn growing. And then one day, it is over his head. He goes on to say, Pastor Niemöller spoke for the thousands and thousands of men like me when he spoke too modestly of himself and said that, when the Nazis attacked the communists, he was a little uneasy, but after all, he was not a communist, and so he did nothing. And then they attacked the socialists, and he was a little uneasier, but still he was not a socialist, and he did nothing. And then the schools, the press, the Jews, and so on, and he was always uneasier, but still he did nothing. And then they attacked the church, and he was a churchman, and he did something, but then it was too late. You see, one doesn't see exactly how or where to move. Believe me, this is true. Says this now dead good German from the grave to all of us, in my opinion, today. Believe me, this is true. Each act, each occasion is worse than the last, but only a little worse. You wait for the next and the next. You wait for that one great shocking occasion, thinking that others, when such a shock comes, will join you in resisting somehow. You don't want to act or even to talk alone. You don't want to go out of your way to make trouble. Why not? Well, you're not in the habit of doing it. It's not just fear of standing alone that restrains you. It's also genuine uncertainty. Uncertainty is a very important factor. And instead of decreasing as time goes on, it grows. Outside in the streets, in the general community, everyone seems happy. One hears no protests, certainly sees none. In France or Italy, there'll be slogans against the government painted on walls and fences. In Germany, outside the great cities, perhaps. But in the university community, in your own community, you speak privately to your colleagues, some of whom certainly feel as you do. But what do they say? They say, it's not so bad. You're seeing things. You're an alarmist. And you are an alarmist. You are saying that this must lead to that. And you can't prove it. These are the beginnings, yes, but how do you know for sure when you don't know the end? How do you know or even surmise the end? On the one hand, your enemies, the law, the regime, the party, the Nazis, they intimidate you. On the other hand, your colleagues poo-poo you as pessimistic or even neurotic. But the one great shocking occasion when tens or hundreds of thousands will join you, it never came. That's the difficulty. If the last and worst act of the whole regime had come immediately after the smallest and first and the smallest, thousands, yes, millions would have been sufficiently shocked if, let us say, the gassing of the Jews in 1943 had come immediately after the German firm stickers in the windows of non-Jewish shops in 1933. But of course, that isn't the way it happened. In between came all the hundreds of little steps, some of them imperceptible, each of them preparing you not to be shocked by the next. Step C is not so much worse than step B, and if you didn't make a stand at step B, why should you take a stand at step C and so on to step D? And one day, too late, your principles, if you were ever sensible of them, all rush in upon you. The burden of self-deception has grown too heavy. And some minor incident, in my case, my little boy, hardly more than a baby, saying, Jew, swine, collapses it all at once. And you see that everything has changed, and changed completely under your nose. And the world you live in, your nation, your people, it's not the world you thought you were in at all. The forms are all there, all untouched, all reassuring, the houses, the shops, the jobs, the meal times, the visits, the concerts, the cinema, the holidays. But the spirit, which you never noticed because you made the lifelong mistake of identifying it with the forms. That spirit is changed, and now you live in a world of hate and fear. And the people who hate and fear do not even know it themselves. When everyone is transformed, it seems as if no one has transformed. And now you live in a system which rules without responsibility even to God. So Milton Mayer says, how is this to be avoided? Among ordinary men, even among highly educated ordinary men. And his professor friend says, frankly, I do not know. I do not see even now how we could have stopped it. Many times since it happened, I've pondered that pair of great maxims, principis obsta and finem rispus, resist the beginnings and consider the end. But you must foresee the end in order to resist or even see the beginnings. You have to clearly see the end. And certainly, how is this to be done by ordinary men or even extraordinary men? And here we are. They thought they were free. By Milton Mayer. This extraordinary book telling us now, speaking to us from 1954, speaking across a half a century to us, saying, consider what you're doing, what your country is doing in your name, and consider when you're going to speak up, when you're going to do something.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
It's talk media for the sane among us, the Thom Hartmann Program, back with more after this. And welcome back. Oh my goodness. Margot in Eastman, Wisconsin. Hey Margot, what's on your mind today?
Oh, Tom, I feel like I'm a frog in a boiling pot of water.
Yeah.
I am so upset. I am 71 years old. I have never seen anything like this in my life. And what I watch, I lived in Arizona for 2 years. What they're doing with these children is unbelievable. It's a political ploy to get his GD wall up, and that is moronic.
Yeah.
And
I think it goes beyond that even, Margot. I think this is, Stephen Miller was bragging about this, who's the, kind of racist in chief in the White House. And I think this is a shout out to the white racist base about how far he's willing to go.
yeah, I just don't understand it. I worked in early childhood for 30 years. And you cannot, these kids that I worked with came from horrendous homes. But what they're doing to these children now by taking away from their parents, that is going to imprint on them forever.
Yeah.
And are we building another another Al Qaeda? They're going to carry angry things about, and not all Americans are like that.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Are we creating another terrorist society?
I doubt it. I think it's far more likely because there's not an overarching ideology or religion, basically. Catholicism does not.
Don't you think they'll get sucked into being haters on?
Oh, I think but I think it's far more likely instead of turning it into terrorists because there's not an organized structure to translate frustration and pain and anxiety into terrorism. Even on our southern border, unless you're speaking about the gangs. But I think what's more likely is you're going to see these children grow up to be people who have been broken. They're going to grow up to be alcoholics. They're going to grow up to be drug addicts. They're going to grow up to be abusers or abusees. They're going to grow up to be, people who are never able to find satisfaction or happiness, just like Donald Trump. He was essentially abandoned by his parents. He was sent off to military school. In the summers when he was home, his mother always went to Europe, so she didn't have to spend the summer with him. His father treated him like he was an annoyance, gave him money to go away. He has this giant hole in his soul, which is why why he behaves the way he does. And many of these children are going to have very similar holes. They probably will not act them out by becoming a real estate mogul because they don't have a father who's going to give them a couple $100 million. But they will act it out, and whether they do so by robbing banks or by beating up their wives or by being the person who gets beaten up, I don't know. But they are wounded, they are damaged, and we are doing it. It's being done in our names, Margot. It's absolutely being done in our names. Margot, thank you for the call. Your point is so well taken. We'll be right back. It's 22 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. 22 minutes past the hour. Thom Hartmann here with you. George in Chicago. Hey, George, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Thanks for taking my call. I've got a simple suggestion for the Trump so-called administration, based on the fact that no American, whether you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, or other, is in favor of illegal immigration. We're all opposed to it. But if they want to have a genuine preventative policy that will discourage adults from attempting to immigrate with children that are not their own, posing as a family. Well, all of us have seen TV cop shows where the cops take a swab from the inside of a cheek, and within a matter of hours or less than a day, they have a genetic profile of that person. And if everybody who came to the border with children was swabbed and then as a group put into confinement under humane circumstances while the testing was being done, you would know in a day or so whether or not they were related and whether the adults were the
it's not even necessary, George. I mean, you had over 300,000 border crossings last year. It was alleged by 300,000. It was alleged by the Trump administration that there were some 40-odd kids who were brought by people who were not their parents. That has not even been demonstrated to be true, first of all. That's the allegation. We have no idea if there have been any convictions of this. And it's just this is the latest BS excuse, is that we're trying to stop child trafficking. There's no evidence of child trafficking, or whatever evidence there is very, very slim. And it doesn't have to do with kids who are coming, presenting themselves as family members. It has to do with kids who are just showing up, all by themselves. So this is a whole nother thing. Marty in Kansas City, Kansas. Hey, Marty, what's up?
Yes, morning, Tom. Thank you for taking my call. I'm 75. I have been slow to buy into the fascist thing that you and I've heard a lot of people talk about, but yeah, I'm there. I'm about 3/4 through this book by Madeleine Albright, Fascism. I think you're probably familiar with it.
I am. I have not read the book. I should get a copy of it.
Yeah, let me tell you, it is a splash of real cold water in the face again. And I see it now. I didn't want to, but there's a quote in there from Hitler when he was criticized by the West and they accused him of being a savage barbarian. He made the comment, hell yes, we're barbarians, we're proud of it, and we have no scruples, nor do we have any bourgeois hesitancies. And I look at this administration and I think, it just rings so true, just absolute disregard for the truth.
Yeah.
Just attacks every fabric of society and our institutions. I'm a lawyer. I've been a prosecutor. I'm a defense attorney now. I don't know if this guy is this brilliantly evil or if it's just his personality, and it's probably more towards the second part.
I think it's the latter. He's been a king his entire life. He's never had to answer to anybody. He was born rich. He's always run his own companies. That's why he loves dictators. This has literally been his life, his entire life. Whatever Donald Trump wanted, that's what he got. He wanted a porn star, he got a porn star. He wanted the Playboy model, he got the Playboy model. He wanted a new wife, he got a new wife. He wanted a new company, he even had to declare bankruptcy a number of times, but he always got what he wanted. And
yeah, and as Madeline points out, about half the world now is only Democratic. This other half is this basically touches upon fascism, these strongmen leaders.
Oh, and it's moving rapidly.
Models,
it's moving rapidly. We're trying to get the reporter who did this piece on what's going on in Hungary from the New York Times on the program as quickly as possible, because this is, what happened. What happened in Turkey. What happened in Poland, now Hungary, now, oh no, it's Romania. Romania is the latest country just over the weekend to just flip hard right. And this rise of fascism is worldwide. Marty, thanks for the call. Very, very well said. And thanks for listening to Sirius XM. Good talking with you. This is absolutely worldwide. This is a trend that was set off in the 1970s in a big way by the Mont Pelerin Society guys, by the libertarian billionaires, essentially. And this is where we're at.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
And they're perfectly willing to use racial fear, anything that they can, basically, to support their ultimately economic agenda. It's the Free Speech TV Fund Drive Week 2, and last week we were way behind, and we had a great Friday. I think we hit $14,000 on Friday, which is marvelous because we'd been doing $4,000. Well, we did $1,200, and $2,000 our first 2 days, and so we need to hit 10 grand a day, and we sort of caught up, but we're still about $20,000 down. For the whole fund drive as we go into this week. So we need to hit our $10,000 every day plus, an additional, say, $4,000. If we can have $14,000 days all week, then we'll be where we need to be. And that means we need a lot of help. We need a lot of folks calling in and making a lot of small gifts. Because that's how it works. That's how Bernie's campaign was funded. That's how this network is funded. And so if you want to be part of Free Speech TV, if you want to be a member of Free Speech TV, if you want to see this television network, this television show, the values, opinions, perspectives, policies that are reflected by, classic FDR progressive values here in the United States, if you want to see that and more of that, then call now, 877-378-8669. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number for Free Speech TV. It's serious stuff. The network has to raise this money. If it doesn't, the network stops. It's, obviously, first they would go through some radical cutbacks. Secondly, they'd probably have to drop all their live programming and go back to just doing documentaries. And then third, they'd turn it off. So, that's process begins if we don't hit these goals, and you don't want to see that, and neither do I. So please call 877-378-8669. We've got some goodies for you, some special, or you can go to freespeech.org/donate. Some special gifts that at different giving levels, they're the same as they were last week. With the $30 gift, you get the Is That True? Or did you hear that on Fox News? Refrigerator magnet. With a $72 gift, you get the Free Speech TV water bottle. With a $120 gift, or $10 a month for the next year, you get a book. You get the Thom Hartmann Reader, autographed by Tom. That's me. I'm guessing you figured that out. With a $20 a month gift for a year, or $240, you get Howard Zinn's A People's History book. This is I think, the best history of the United States that's ever been written. Howard Zinn was an absolute genius. And a DVD that goes along with it about the people's history of the United States. Plus, Reverend William Barber's book, the pastor from, I believe it's North Carolina, it might be South Carolina. But he's been a guest on our program a number of times, and the leader of the whole, moral, I think it was Moral Monday was how it started out, movement. And he is just doing great stuff. And he has a new book out. It's called The Third Reconstruction. And you're going to want to get and read this book. That's with a $240 gift. With a $360 gift, or $30 a month for a year, you get all of the books mentioned. My book, Howard Zinn's book, Reverend Barber's book, all of them, plus the DVD with the Howard Zinn book. That's for the $360 gift. It's the all books combo. And with a $480 gift, or $40 a month for a year, you get the Everything Kit, which is all the books that we just talked about. My book, Reverend Barber's book, Howard Zinn's book, the DVD for Howard Zinn's book, plus the Free Speech TV Fox News magnet. Is that true, or did you hear it on Fox News? Plus the water bottle. That's the $480 or $40 a month for a year gift level. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland. Boy, muscle memory there. Come to Portland, Oregon, and I do occasionally get back to D.C., but not enough to predictably organize a meeting. So come to Portland, and I'll take you to lunch. It's a great city to see. It's just a beautiful city, a beautiful part of the country, actually. Within a 1-hour drive from Portland, you can be in the mountains, you can be on a glacier, you can be on the seacoast, you can be in a desert, the high desert, you could be in a rainforest. You could be, on a river. It's and of course, keep Portland weird. When you come to Portland, you discover that the TV show Portlandia is actually a documentary. It's not a comedy, and because it's really what this city is like, and I love it. So anyhow, that's with a $1,000 gift. But it's not the gifts that are, the important thing. I mean, it's kind of cool to get, an autographed book and all that kind of stuff, and they make great gifts to give to other people. But really what's important here is to keep this television network going and thriving. If we can hit this $10,000 a day level, which is now $14,000 a day roughly for this whole week because of how far behind we are, if we can hit that, then we can do it. 877-378-8669. Thank you. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Just a quick aside. Sandra Hart sent me a note about her mother. Excuse me. Alicia Board sent me a note about her mother, Sandra Hart, and who is suffering from stage 4 kidney cancer, and is a big fan of the show. And her birthday is 2 days different from. She's 2 days younger than I am. So I just wanted to say, Sandra, we're wishing you all the very best. You're in our thoughts and our prayers, and thank you for being a big fan and booster of the show. And hey to Alicia, too. Okay, the head of the CIA, the former head of the CIA. It says CIA here. I thought he was the NSA. Michael Hayden ran the NSA, didn't he? Yeah. He's the national security, the NSA. Retired General Michael Hayden tweeted, this was 2 days ago, day before yesterday, in the morning at 10 a.m., he tweeted a picture of Birkenau, I believe it is. Yeah, Birkenau. And, with a caption, "Other governments have separated mothers and children." And it was, where the railroad lines are coming in and where the people would get out, and they would separate the mothers from their children and send whoever looked like they couldn't work off to the camp, off to the ovens, and whoever could work off to the work area. And then he again tweeted it several hours later. This is Birkenau, then Germany, now Poland. No one who now walks through that portal on that siding can casually believe that civilized behavior is guaranteed. The former director of the National Security Agency, the NSA, Michael Hayden. It's amazing. Heather in Seattle. Hey, Heather, what's up?
Hey, I wanted to point out that Trump is really grooming us, as he probably groomed a dozen more women that he is groomed for his sexual lust, he's also doing this to our country. He's grooming us so that every little step, exactly what you were saying, we don't notice. And we question, is this really happening? Is he really, really doing this? And then once we call him on it, he goes, oh, no, you misunderstand. I'm a patriot. I am who you've all been waiting for.
Right.
So I'd really like to point that out and to make the point that women get this and that we need another women's march, and we really need a parents' march.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's very, very well said, Heather. Thank you for the call. Rich in Greenwood, Indiana. Hey, Rich.
What she's saying is violation of expectation. It generates a sense of surprise, and we don't know what to do. We're caught without our balance.
Right, and as long as the surprises are small and frequent, then you're continually off balance until it's too late.
That term, violation of expectation, is something that you can look up. I wanted to bring forward the idea of how this has all been played out before, and these guys are just plagiarizing history. I want you to understand what was going on when the architect Albert Speer was redesigning himself for mass consumption in Germany. He had had a 20-year sentence at Spandau prison, and he had portrayed himself as the good Nazi.
Right, as the victim of Hitler.
He was a fellow that didn't know anything about the death camps.
Right.
He was innocent. He had actually been present when Heinrich Himmler, the guy that ran the SS, said in a speech in 1943 in Posen, Poland, exterminate these people from the earth. But he had left the room by then. And the point of me bringing up this idea is that the people of Germany were absolutely starving for a narrative that would allow them to shed their guilt and shame.
Right.
And as we permit this delusion, this purposeful inculcating of delusion in the mass audience, this is what will follow. I want you to understand that it is not unreasonable to believe that Trump has a secret narrative. Hitler died in 1945 in the Fuhrer bunker in Berlin. Trump was conceived in 1945 and born in 46. It is not unreasonable to believe that this crazy, sick, hateful man could believe himself to be reincarnated.
Bro,
I don't think that's too far to go.
Yeah, or if you're a big believer in reincarnation, thinking that actually it's a fact. But that's, wow. Okay, Rich, I got to digest that. I got to digest that. Thanks a lot for the call. Don in St. Paul, Minnesota. Hey, Don, what's up?
Good morning, Tom. Thank you for taking my call. I would just would like to see, I watch all the stations that I can dealing with this administration and all, but, the thing that happened is they never, ever play. They replay a lot of things that Trump said during the campaign, but they never replay where he would make a comment saying, if I lose this election, it is fixed. And I wish that the stations would start replaying some of that so that people could see what he was talking about at the time he was running against Hillary.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's a thing that for some reason it hasn't come out, and I think if you being the leader that you are, if you promoted that,
yeah,
there would be.
Well, let me see what we can do, Don. I don't entirely disagree with you. I do think that's sort of the beginning of the beginning. But this whole thing of attacking the media and attacking everybody, yeah, okay, it's an excellent point. Thank you very much. Michael in Jacksonville, Florida. Hey, Michael, what's up?
Yeah, Tom, I would just like to. I was listening to your monologue when I got in the car and listening to Marty. I think we entirely missed the point about any comparisons of fascist Germany and United States. It was not about Hitler. We've made Hitler the most evil man in history. And when we think of World War II and killing and everything, the first thing we think about is Adolf Hitler. But really, it was the process that brought Hitler to power. Anytime you mention Adolf Hitler in Nazi Germany, people are going to immediately think of Adolf Hitler, and they're not going to compare Trump with Adolf Hitler, nor should he be compared with Adolf Hitler.
Well, when Hitler came to power, he only had the support of about a third of the German people. You know, he was not elected by a majority. He was not elected, of course, but he didn't even have majority support when he first came to power. But by 1934, 35, I think it was 35 or 36, he was on the cover of Time magazine as literally the most popular politician in the world, because he was bringing Germany out of the Great Depression by building the Autobahn, by designing and building the Volkswagen, by a huge, massive military buildup, and by blaming all the other countries for the woes of World War I and for all, you know, everything that happened. And if Hitler had never gassed the Jews, and we looked back at the history of World War II, I think that we would still see those same parallels between the way that Hitler took over Germany and the way that Trump has successfully taken over the Republican Party and is preparing to take over the entire United States, it seems.
Well, yeah, but we're still focusing on the man and not the process.
Oh, the system, yeah. Yeah.
The system that brought Hitler to power. Hitler didn't invent anti-Semitism.
Yeah, you're right.
He wasn't the original thinker about striking east, taking over the Soviet Union.
Yeah. And if you want to think that the idea of sending people off to camps where they would be murdered, their children would be separated from them, families would be torn apart, people would be subject to insane brutality, you know, generation after generation, you don't need to look to Nazi Germany. You just look to the United States before the Civil War. And for that matter, all the way back to the founding of this nation, when white people first came to this country and started a systemic and systematic genocide of Native Americans that killed somewhere between 20 and 100 million human beings over the course of a 200-300 year period. You know, both the genocide of Native Americans and the genocide of African Americans. You know, we are capable of this.
Certainly, but it's not going to help if we continue to draw parallels between this and Nazi Germany. It's not really going to help because people just aren't going to see that.
Well, I think it might help considerably if we can help people to see that, because this, as you said, Michael, this is an old playbook, and this playbook has been picked up by these guys, and they are running with it full tilt boogie, as if they had just watched the movie and said, okay, cool, we'll do that. Michael, thank you for the call. Including the military expansionism and the threats against neighbors and breaking alliances. I mean, all of this stuff is going on.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Not to mention, probably the most important thing is the internal political demonization of the opposition that has happened in all of these countries that have gone this path. And welcome back. Mark in Valley, Washington. Hey, Mark, what's up?
Well, I just was wanted to relate an experience. I donate time at the local food bank, and about half the people there all go to this one church, consider themselves pretty staunch Christians, so I get into conversations with them. So I asked one of them one day, I asked him what he felt about the separation of children at the border.
Hang on just a second, Mark. Are these the people who are coming to get the food, or the people who are volunteering to provide the food?
Volunteering to to set it up and hand it out.
Okay. All right.
So I asked him about that, and he was like, well, they shouldn't be coming here. That's fine. So I started going on, and I said, then you call yourself a Christian. I said, do you think if Jesus was on the border, he'd be standing there ripping these babies out of people's arms? And he told me, I don't know. And I said BS, but I didn't use the initials.
Yeah.
I said, you know darn well that Jesus wouldn't be doing that. So I finally got him to finally say, no, they probably shouldn't be doing that.
Amazing.
But it took me to really hammer him on a series of pinpoint questions to get him to that point. And I got one other quick point. I want all the listeners that haven't written their congresswomen like I've done and called about this issue to remember that when Nazi Germany fell, nobody went around and asked the German citizens, did you support Hitler? They all got painted with the same brush.
Right. Yeah,
So
you're right.
Now we're all being painted with that brush.
Yeah. Excellent point. Mark, thank you. Very well said. Anita in San Antonio. Hey, Anita, thanks for watching Free Speech. What's up?
Hi, Tom. I think we give Donald Trump way too much credit. And he loves us trying to analyze everything he does. Because basically he's just an incompetent narcissist. And he surrounds himself with people who have their own agendas. And he fulfills those agendas just by, allowing them to do it. Or by picking those people like Jeff Sessions, who's always wanted to do this. Or Betsy DeVos. Or what's his name? Scott Pruitt.
Right.
That's what he and remember what Rush Limbaugh said. Rush Limbaugh said we can nominate. I think it was Porky Pig as long as he signs the, legislation.
I think we did nominate. That's who we have as president.
Yeah.
Isn't it? I mean,
we have Porky Pig. Yeah. Yes. So I think it does him. He gets too much credit for having some sort of agenda or some sort of grand scheme. I don't think he does. He's just an idiot. He's an incompetent buffoon, and he's disgusting. He's crude. And that's
but the same forces that again, I refer you to Fritz Tyson's book, I Paid Hitler. The same forces that elevated Hitler, the large corporations that supported him in a big way, because he was going to make it more profitable for companies. And he did cut German taxes on corporations and on rich people. Those are the same forces that are supporting Donald Trump. And
those and the racists.
Well, I'm talking about the people who spent millions of dollars to get Donald Trump elected, who probably hold to racist ideology, but they're not the Richard Spencers of the world. And, they're perfectly willing to use the Richard Spencers of the world and even to elevate the Richard Spencers of the world in order to increase the voting coalition of people who will then support policies like tax cuts for billionaires and deregulation.
Right. But don't discount how much the Russians wanted this. This destabilizes the United States, which is exactly what they wanted.
Absolutely. And also, there was some substantial animus against Hillary Clinton there, too.
Right. That's true. And they're also misogynist. So,
yeah. Anyhow, Anita, thank you for the call. It's pretty amazing what's going on. We'll be back. It's coming up on 10 minutes before the hour. Welcome back. 10 minutes before the hour on the place where smart people get their news, the Thom Hartmann Program. And in Sacramento, California, it says Caroline, but I'm guessing that's a typo?
It's a typo. It's Geraldine.
Geraldine. So what's up?
Well, what's up is I'm so mad about so many things that what I think we need is a party of fixers. We need to list all of these rotten things that are going on, like selling off our parks and destroying our water and screwing up the air and doing these things to these children on the border. We need a list of those things and people that know how to fix them.
Yeah.
I mean, really know how to fix them, because if we don't fix, I'm this California girl that railed against Ronald Reagan and the school system, and we still have not fixed it. We need somebody that knows how to fix these things when we get rid of this SOB.
Yeah. Well, Amy Siskin has been documenting this. She was a guest on this program in the studio last week, in fact, and she wrote a book called The List, and every day she adds to it. It's on her blog. And, it's typically 6 or 8 things a day that the Trump administration is doing that are all absolutely, totally not normal. And the book is like a 400-page book now, but
But we need to list the people that know how to fix them.
Yeah, but it seems like this is the starting point, for lack of anything else. But amen, Geraldine, I'm with you. Bill in Hey, Bill, I've got 22 seconds. I'm sorry. I think until we hit a break. No? Oh, that's the return of the money of the music. Okay. Hey, Bill, you're on the air. What's on your mind?
Well, there's so much I got on my mind, and I agree with what everybody has said today. But they got to realize, people, that it's who you elect. I watched a 60-minute program today, and it was about the opioid crisis, and the CIA was arresting people, and its distributors was the cause of the whole thing.
Right.
And did you see that, Tom?
I did not, but I know what you're talking about, Bill. And so much is going on; it's hard to keep up with. Bill, your point is well made. Can you just summarize real quickly? There's somebody I want to drop on the line.
Well,
real
if
quick.
You would have seen what the process was that took the CIA out of it, was the Republicans and what's that? Barbara Boxer from Tennessee, and then Marina wrote a bill, and all the people that was doing the work and prosecuting people in the CIA, they took and made them they took them out and put them on the other side, and they finally took the lead man clear out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, Bill, I'm sorry, I didn't see the documentary, so I can't speak to that, but thank you for the call. Is that Sue Nethercutt on the line?
It is.
Hey, Sue, this is Sue who did our newsletter for years and years and years, and our transcripts and so much stuff on our website, and monitored our chat rooms, and I went over to visit in London after her surgery a couple of weeks ago. Sue, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I called to thank you very much for coming to visit me. That was an amazing gesture, and everyone over here was impressed that heard about it. And I also want to thank all the listeners who sent their good wishes.
Sweet. And how are you doing, Sue?
Not bad. I'm pretty weak, but I'm recovering. I was well enough to go out for lunch at the weekend.
Oh, marvelous.
Which I haven't done all year, I don't think.
Yeah, that's marvelous. All right. Well, is there anything more you'd like people to know, or is there any way to contact you if people would like to?
I don't think so. I still pop up in the chat room occasionally or on the YouTube chat.
Okay.
If anyone wants to talk to me, they might strike lucky.
Okay. All righty. All right, Sue.
Okay, thanks, Tom.
Great talking to you. Thank you for calling in, and you are in our thoughts and literally in my prayers every day. And I keep on healing. Keep on healing.
Thank you.
Okay.
I intend to.
We all love you, Sue. Thank you so much.
Love you back.
Thanks. Good talking with you. That was Sue Nethercutt, who has helped build this program. She has been a part of this program for years, and a very, very important part. Thanks so much, Sue. John in Coal City, Illinois. Hey, John, what's on your mind today?
Well, Tom, it's glad to hear from you, but the Republican Party's strong points is fake news. Now, you know more fake news than I do, but it's out there. Then it's the religious right, the hypocrite right. And a good example of that is Joel Osteen from Texas, Houston, Texas. In that last hurricane, he wouldn't let people in. He's worth $70-some million. And he just put on a program where he's...
Oh, this is you're talking about the evangelist, the mega church evangelist guy.
Yeah, he's selling tickets.
Yeah.
$15 to get into this revival or whatever.
Right.
When Christ fed 5,000 men plus women and children, did he sell tickets to get into that?
Yeah, but this guy's running a business, and Jesus wasn't running a business.
That's true. He's fake religious right.
Yeah.
And that's destroying America too, because back in Germany, when they had that Russian guy or the German guy, when they were smoking them people up them chimneys, they had signs out there, "You killed our Savior."
Yeah.
Very dramatic.
Oh, yeah, that was the anti-Semitism of the time. Yeah, absolutely. John, thanks for the call and for pointing that out. Marta in Big Bear Lake, California. Marta, we have a minute to the break. What's up?
Well, I just believe that we have a real problem with with not wanting immigrants. And immigrants contribute so much to our nation. I don't believe that, and a few people would want to leave everything they've known, their homes, their families, communities, culture, and come to the United States unless they're, it's just a crisis situation. But immigrants contribute so much to our country. We need to fix our broken immigration system. If they're breaking the law, then maybe we need to change our laws. And we contribute so much to military situations around the world. We have, 800 bases around the world? Why don't we help these countries that have these serious
I think it goes
crises?
beyond that, Marta. We are not seeing refugees from Costa Rica. Costa Rica decided to do away with their army. They have no military. And everybody in Costa Rica has free health care and free education all the way up to MD or PhD. And they use the money from the military to do that. If we could convince Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador to do the same, we would no longer have these refugees showing up on our doorsteps. Marta, thank you for the call. We'll be back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com. The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by XChair, the XChair chair, office chair. XChairTom.com is the website, XChairTHOM.com. Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242 or visit tomsbeets.com. It's the Free Speech TV Fund Drive Week 2, and last week we were way behind, and we had a great Friday. I think we hit $14,000 on Friday, which is marvelous because we'd been doing $4,000. Well, we did $1,200, and $2,000 our first 2 days, and so we need to hit 10 grand a day, and we sort of caught up, but we're still about $20,000 down. And for the whole fund drive as we go into this week. So we need to hit our $10,000 every day plus, an additional, say, $4,000. If we can have $14,000 days all week, then we'll be where we need to be. And that means we need a lot of help. We need a lot of folks calling in and making a lot of small gifts. Because that's how it works. That's how Bernie's campaign was funded. That's how this network is funded. And so if you want to be part of Free Speech TV, if you want to be a member of Free Speech TV, if you want to see this television network, this television show, the values, opinions, perspectives, policies that are reflected by, classic FDR progressive values here in the United States, if you want to see that and more of that, then call now, 877-378-8669. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number for Free Speech TV. It's serious stuff. The network has to raise this money. If it doesn't, the network stops. It's, obviously first they would go through some radical cutbacks. Secondly, they'd probably have to drop all their live programming and go back to just doing documentaries. And then third, they'd turn it off. So, that's process begins if we don't hit these goals. And you don't want to see that, and neither do I. So please call 877-378-8669. We've got some goodies for you, some special, or you can go to freespeech.org/donate. Some special gifts that at different giving levels, they're the same as they were last week. With the $30 gift, you get the Is That True? Or did you hear that on Fox News? Refrigerator magnet. With a $72 gift, you get the Free Speech TV water bottle. With a $120 gift, or $10 a month for the next year, you get a book. You get the Thom Hartmann Reader, autographed by Tom. That's me. I'm guessing you figured that out. With a $20 a month gift for a year, or $240, you get Howard Zinn's A People's History book. This is I think, the best history of the United States that's ever been written. Howard Zinn was an absolute genius. And a DVD that goes along with it about the people's history of the United States. Plus, Reverend William Barber's book, the pastor from, I believe it's North Carolina, it might be South Carolina. But he's been a guest on our program a number of times, and the leader of the whole, moral, I think it was Moral Monday was how it started out, movement, and he is just doing great stuff. And he has a new book out. It's called The Third Reconstruction. And you're going to want to get and read this book. That's with a $240 gift. With a $360 gift, or $30 a month for a year, you get all of the books mentioned. My book, Howard Zinn's book, Reverend Barber's book, all of them, plus the DVD with a Howard Zinn book. That's for the $360 gift. It's the all books combo. And with a $480 gift, or $40 a month for a year, you get the Everything Kit, which is all the books that we just talked about. My book, Reverend Barber's book, Howard Zinn's book, the DVD for Howard Zinn's book, plus the Free Speech TV Fox News magnet. Is that true, or did you hear it on Fox News? Plus the water bottle. That's the $480 or $40 a month for a year gift level. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland. Boy, muscle memory there. Come to Portland, Oregon, and I do occasionally get back to D.C., but not enough to predictably organize a meeting. So come to Portland, and I'll take you to lunch. It's a great city to see. It's just a beautiful city, a beautiful part of the country, actually. Within a 1-hour drive from Portland, you can be in the mountains, you can be on a glacier, you can be on the seacoast, you can be in a desert, the high desert, you can be in a rainforest, you could be, on a river. It's and of course, keep Portland weird. When you come to Portland, you discover that the TV show Portlandia is actually a documentary. It's not a comedy. And because it's really what this city is like, and I love it. So anyhow, that's with a $1,000 gift. But it's not the gifts that are, the important thing. I mean, it's kind of cool to get, an autographed book and all that kind of stuff, and they make great gifts to give to other people. But really what's important here is to keep this television network going and thriving. If we can hit this $10,000 a day level, which is now $14,000 a day roughly for this whole week because of how far behind we are, if we can hit that, then we can do it. 877-378-8669. Thank you. 1800.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which was created by Dodd-Frank and Elizabeth Warren, it was her child, basically. Her argument was, we make sure that when companies sell toasters, that they don't blow up in a consumer's kitchen and catch their house on fire. Right? The underwriters lab and all that kind of, there's certifications, and the government moderates and mediates some of this stuff. So let's make sure, if we're going to sell somebody a financial instrument, a pension, an investment, whatever it may be, that it's not going to, a mortgage, a student loan, that it's not going to blow up in their face, that they're not being conned or scammed. And so they created the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to look for people in the banking industry who were stealing from us. And they found $13 billion worth of people in the banking industry stealing from us last year, took that money back from them and literally returned it to us, the consumers. Now, that does not go over well with the banksters, right? The banksters are quite upset about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and the fact that there is a government agency that can act on behalf of you and me, on behalf of consumers. Oh my God, we can't have that. The Republican Party has pledged its loyalty to the top 1% and the corporations that made them rich, period. Not the small businesses of America, not the medium-sized businesses of America, but to the billionaires and the very large corporations, including those corporations based in other countries and those oligarchs based in other countries. And this was even, before Trump came along, to a large extent, this was going on. But now Trump has turned it into official policy. And with regard to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, it's entirely Trump. Right? The CFPB was running really, really well under Obama, and recovering billions of dollars on your behalf and my behalf. And now Trump puts Mick Mulvaney in charge of it, his OMB director, former, right-wing hack congressman, puts Mick Mulvaney in charge of it, and Mick Mulvaney is just trying to destroy the agency. So I get this email from Josh Nelson at Credo Action, and the website is credoaction.com. And it says, stand with Senator Warren. Stop a Trump official from trading lobbyist contributions for access. And they're talking about Mick Mulvaney. And so they've got this petition together over at Credo Action. And it goes to the Deputy General Counsel for General Law and Ethics, a woman by the name of Sonia White. And she's the one who has oversight over the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And the request is, investigate Interim Director Mick Mulvaney's potential conflicts of interest and publicly detail what steps you have taken to ensure his stated practice of trading access for lobbyist contributions does not undermine the CFPB's core mission. And here's the letter I got, the email that I got. Trump's interim director of the CFPB, Mick Mulvaney, has requested a budget of $0 for the entire agency. You get this? He can't kill the agency. The law created it. He can't tell it to do insanely stupid things because the law says it's got to help consumers. So for next year's budget, which starts on October 1st, he says, well, just fund the agency at $0. We'll fire everybody. We'll disconnect the phones. There'll be nobody here. It'll still exist, right? In theory. But fund them at $0. And not only that, Mick Mulvaney has also joined forces with payday lenders, and he has fired every member of the CFPB's Consumer Advocate Advisory Panel. They had this panel of people who, oversaw what they were doing, who made sure that they were acting on behalf of consumers. He's fired every single one of them. The letter goes on to say Mulvaney is the same person who received hundreds of thousands of dollars in contributions from the banking and predatory lending industries, and then told a room full of bank lobbyists that when he was a congressman, he only held meetings with lobbyists who donated money to his campaigns. Elizabeth Warren does not think it's a coincidence that Mulvaney only took meetings with, only would visit with lobbyists who gave him money when he was a congressman, and now the industries that have given him money who don't like the CFPB, they've invested hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of dollars in Mick Mulvaney, and now Mick Mulvaney is going to protect their billion-dollar revenue stream. multi-billion-dollar revenue stream. This is why I keep saying, the best investment you can make in America right now is to buy a Republican politician, because they will do what you want, they will put it into law. And the banksters own the Trump administration. I mean, all these top Goldman Sachs officials that Trump brings into Treasury, and now he's got Mulvaney at OMB, and all these guys, they're either banksters or they're the toadies of the banksters. In the case of Gary Cohn and Stephen Mnuchin, they're actual Goldman Sachs bankers. In fact, the most senior levels of Goldman Sachs banksters. In the case of Mick Mulvaney, they're just toadies for banksters, right? Been taking money from banksters his whole life. This is one small piece of this large and broad arc of outrageous conduct, which now has come down to Sophie's Choice. I tweeted out to Rob Reiner, I don't know if he saw it over the weekend, but Rob's a good guy and is very, very concerned about what's going on. And I tweeted out to him that if you know, and I also sent this an email saying the same thing essentially to a few other friends I have in Hollywood, saying if you know who owns the rights to Sophie's Choice, the movie, now would be a great time to re-release that movie. To see that movie in theatrical re-release, or even to have just a big splash, roll it out again, maybe with a little opening, a minute or two opening with Meryl Streep or some of the other actors in Sophie's Choice. To get Americans to watch that movie, to have a sense of what it must be like to be a mother, knowing you're about to lose at least one of your children. I was so impacted by that movie. It took me a week to recover from having seen it. Louise and I saw it together. I still remember walking out of the theater. It was in Vermont. It was in the fall. It was cold. Maybe it was in the spring, whatever it was. It wasn't summer or winter yet. And I walked out of that theater with tears in my eyes. It was on downtown Main Street in Plymouth, New Hampshire. Excuse me. It wasn't Montpelier. And just shocked. Absolutely shocked. And I don't know if it's still playing or where it's still playing. I should look that up. But that's what's going on right now. That is what we are inflicting on these mothers and children, and fathers and children, and their children. And this is just so wrong. Jason in Bryson City, North Carolina. Hey, Jason, thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Hey, Tom. You had a caller on earlier talking, you were talking about the rise of Hitler in Germany during the 30s, but I think a really important point that we should add to this is how American and British bankers funded the whole thing. Well,
not the whole thing, but they played a role in it, certainly.
A considerable part.
And Brown Brothers Harriman. That was Prescott Bush's bank. He was funding Hitler right up to and after funding of foreign governments had been banned by FDR. FDR, nearly threw him in prison, and he was the United States senator at the time.
Absolutely. And I don't know how many Russians would have been saved, or Jewish people would have been saved if Standard Oil may not have sold certain chemicals to them during the war to produce synthetic.
Or IBM, IBM gave them the computer system that they used for the final solution.
Yeah.
To keep track of everybody.
And
we played a role in it.
We see the same thing happening in this country.
And the one thing, by the way, Jason, that all of those people who played that role in it, and Fritz Tyson in this book that I've been reading, I Paid for Hitler, the one thing that all of them, the way that they rationalized their behavior was they said, we're making money. This is the free market. I mean, what? You're trying to tell me that the free market shouldn't exist, that I shouldn't be able to make money? And here we are again.
The free market has no morals on its own.
Yeah, no, it's intrinsically sociopathic.
The only quest.
Yep, and so when you combine a sociopathic leader with a sociopathic marketplace, what do you get? Fascism. 16 minutes past the hour.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Back with more of the news of the day and your calls. Have we reached that fascist inflection point yet? Are we yet able to look back with horror? And welcome back. What a day, huh? We're back. It's Monday. Life is rolling along. And Jeff in St. Louis, Missouri. Hey, Jeff, thanks for watching us on Free Speech TV. What's on your mind today?
Yeah, I'm interested in nullifying Trump's election because of cross-check and the Russian meddling. I believe that the whole election could be called off, and we should just, in the midterm elections, elect a new president and cancel everything that he's done.
I agree with you that that would be an optimal outcome, Jeff, but there's no mechanism for that in the Constitution, and there's no mechanism for that, to the best of my knowledge, that has ever been enacted into law or that might supplement the Constitution or that could even be used as a justification for it. Most states have a mechanism to deal with fraudulent or corrupted elections built into their constitutions or into their laws. The United States does not.
I've heard of other countries having their elections canceled, and I've heard of the U.S. I believe I've heard of the U.S. stepping into other countries' politics because they said their elections have been unfair.
We did that in Ukraine. It's one of the things that Putin was so pissed off about. Is, you know, in Ukraine, the people of Ukraine had elected with Paul Manafort's help, Yanukovych, a guy who was friendly to the Russians, and you know, we stepped in and said, you know, the polls, the election results did not comport with, they weren't identical to the exit polls, and therefore this was a corrupted election. It was a phony election. What the voting machines said, or what the voting, you know, what the ballots said, was not what the exit polls said, and so you know, this is, and so there was, you know, we basically sponsored a revolution to throw him out and replace him. Now here, when the exit polls don't comport with the voting machines, which is what happened throughout the Midwest, by the way, in the last election, and has been happening in every presidential election since 2000. Here, when that happens, we simply say, you know, well, we'll adjust the exit polls. Right, that's what we do.
So basically, us Americans are sticking our heads in the sand saying, oh, well, that's what they said, so that's what we'll do.
And tragically, it has always worked to the benefit of the Republican Party in every single election. It's called redshift. You can Google it. And the Democrats should be screaming about this. And I have talked with Democrats, and the Democratic, you know, I mean, elected officials, the senior leadership of the Democratic Party is afraid to bring this topic up for fear that it will cause people to say, oh, well, the machines are rigged, why should I even bother voting? And I think one of the things that we definitely learned from the experience of Trump, who was telling everybody that the election was rigged, the machines were rigged, quack, 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 is that doesn't stop people from voting. They still showed up. He's sitting in the White House right now.
Well, actually, I believe that less people voted this last election because of people are starting to feel like their vote's useless because of things like cross-check and all this other crap.
Well, that's why the senior Democrats don't want to talk about it, because they're afraid that people are going to say, oh, well, you know, my vote won't be counted anyway. Your vote, by and large, your vote will be counted, and you need to turn up in larger and larger numbers. But that said, the Democratic Party also needs to talk about how elections are stolen. Jeff, thanks for the call. We'll be back. It's 20 minutes past the hour.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by X-Chair. The X-Chair chair, office chair. xchairtom.com is the website, xchairthom.com.
Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242 or visit tomsbeets.com.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. He had a special on at, it was 6 o'clock Pacific time, must have been 9 o'clock Eastern time last night. It was called How to Rig an Election. And it was all about gerrymandering. And, you know, I thought, you know, well, that's a nice start, you know, to do an hour special on gerrymandering, but why didn't they include the way that Republicans make sure that in poor and African-American and college towns and in all those communities where you've got heavy concentrations of Democratic voters, that they use so few voting machines that you have to wait in line for 6, 8, 10, 12 hours to vote. Whereas in wealthy, white, suburban Republican districts, you walk in, you vote, you walk out. Number one, why is that? You know, they didn't, you know, I mean, you want to talk about how to fix an election? That's a big piece of it. They didn't talk about Chris Kobach and the voter purges, the election purges, which the Supreme Court just semi-ratified, you know, last week. No discussion to the best of my knowledge about that. Now, I didn't watch the last 20 minutes of the show. I finally, you know, it was just getting so repetitive all about, you know, redistricting. And redistricting is a big deal. It's very much a big deal. And, you know, hats off to MSNBC for talking about it. But that's only a small part of how the Republicans have rigged the electoral system in this country, or basically how the landowning few, how the very wealthy have rigged the system in this country for years now. And, you know, these things collectively, and this goes back to Paul Weyrich saying, I don't want everybody to vote. Elections are not won by the largest number of people. They never have been in this country, and they never will be. In fact, our leverage in the elections, quite frankly, goes up as the voting populace goes down. That was a verbatim quote from one of the guys who co-founded the Heritage Foundation and was helping run the Reagan campaign in 1980. We don't want people to vote, was what he was saying. And so we have this entire systematic thing going on in those states controlled by Republicans to make it more difficult to vote, to suppress the vote, to keep people from voting. And they're expanding these programs. These programs are growing. They've brought it into the White House. They've made this part of official U.S. policy. And they even, you know, the Supreme Court, Neil Gorsuch, the corrupt and illegitimate justice sitting on the Supreme Court, was the deciding vote, 5-4 decision, to say that now what previous courts had issued a multi-decade restraining order against the Republican Party from doing, caging, sending out postcards to people, and then if the postcards don't come back, removing them from the voting rolls or putting them, you know, setting them on the course to have themselves removed from the voting rolls. That was done and was banned by Republicans are banned from doing it. And then last week the Supreme Court said, well, you know, maybe the Republican Party can't do it, but the state of Ohio can. If John Kasich wants to knock more people off the voting rolls, he can just go right ahead and do that and show up on MSNBC and talk about what a wonderful centrist he is and how we can't have things being approved by Bernie Sanders. Right? And the host just loves him for it. Isn't that sweet? This is so sad. I mean, it's so sad. And this is how our electoral system has been corrupted, and it's not something new. This is something that Lewis Powell outlined in 1971. These are systems that were put in place back 150 years ago, when finally African Americans won the right to be humans in North America after the Civil War, in the early days of Reconstruction. And they actually started winning elections like in South Carolina. And the radical Republicans like Thaddeus Stevens were supporting them. And then what happens? All the backlash to Reconstruction happens. You know, the whole, Jim Crow comes in the 1870s and is cemented policy by the 1880s. In 1898, you get Plessy versus Ferguson. And now it's the law of the land, the Supreme Court says, separate but equal. And, that applied to pretty much everything, from schools to voting. And so we've had systematic suppression of the votes of people of color and people who are poor, including poor whites, and people who are young, students in particular, and in Native American communities and reservations. It's consistent suppression of that vote since forever. This is the American way. John C. Calhoun's strategies from the 1820s were picked up in the 1970s by Lewis Powell and his buddies and by the guys from the Mont Pelerin Society, and are now the policy of the Trump administration. This is how insane it is. John C. Calhoun, one of the largest slave owners in the Carolinas.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Former vice president, and the guy who came up with the idea that the whole point of the Constitution is to protect property. Of course, back then he was talking about slavery. It's the Free Speech TV Fund Drive Week 2, and last week we were way behind, and we had a great Friday. I think we hit $14,000 on Friday, which is marvelous because we'd been doing $4,000. Well, we did $1,200, and $2,000 our first 2 days, and so we need to hit 10 grand a day, and we sort of caught up, but we're still about $20,000 down. And for the whole fund drive as we go into this week. So we need to hit our $10,000 every day plus, an additional, say, $4,000. If we can have $14,000 days all week, then we'll be where we need to be. And that means we need a lot of help. We need a lot of folks calling in and making a lot of small gifts. Because that's how it works. That's how Bernie's campaign was funded. That's how this network is funded. And so if you want to be part of Free Speech TV, if you want to be a member of Free Speech TV, if you want to see this television network, this television show, the values, opinions, perspectives, policies that are reflected by, classic FDR progressive values here in the United States, if you want to see that and more of that, then call now, 877-378-8669. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number for Free Speech TV. It's serious stuff. The network has to raise this money. If it doesn't, the network stops. It's, obviously first they would go through some radical cutbacks. Secondly, they'd probably have to drop all their live programming and go back to just doing documentaries. And then third, they'd turn it off. So, that's process begins if we don't hit these goals, and you don't want to see that, and neither do I. So please call 877-378-8669. We've got some goodies for you, some special, or you can go to freespeech.org/donate. Some special gifts that at different giving levels, they're the same as they were last week. With the $30 gift, you get the Is That True? Or did you hear that on Fox News? Refrigerator magnet. With a $72 gift, you get the Free Speech TV water bottle. With a $120 gift, or $10 a month for the next year, you get a book. You get the Thom Hartmann Reader, autographed by Tom. That's me. I'm guessing you figured that out. With a $20 a month gift for a year, or $240, you get Howard Zinn's A People's History book. This is I think, the best history of the United States that's ever been written. Howard Zinn was an absolute genius. and a DVD that goes along with it about the people's history of the United States. Plus, Reverend William Barber's book, the pastor from, I believe it's North Carolina, might be South Carolina, but he's been a guest on our program a number of times, and the leader of the whole, moral, I think it was Moral Monday was how it started out, movement, and he is just doing great stuff. And he has a new book out. It's called The Third Reconstruction. And you're going to want to get and read this book. That's with a $240 gift. With a $360 gift, or $30 a month for a year, you get all of the books mentioned. My book, Howard Zinn's book, Reverend Barber's book, all of them, plus the DVD with the Howard Zinn book. That's for the $360 gift. It's the all books combo. And with a $480 gift, or $40 a month for a year, you get the Everything Kit, which is all the books that we just talked about. My book, Reverend Barber's book, Howard Zinn's book, the DVD for Howard Zinn's book, plus the Free Speech TV Fox News magnet. Is that true, or did you hear it on Fox News? Plus the water bottle. That's the $480 or $40 a month for a year gift level. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland. Boy, muscle memory there. Come to Portland, Oregon, and I do occasionally get back to D.C., but not enough to predictably organize a meeting. So come to Portland, and I'll take you to lunch. It's a great city to see. It's just a beautiful city, a beautiful part of the country, actually. Within a 1-hour drive from Portland, you can be in the mountains, you can be on a glacier, you can be on the seacoast, you can be in a desert, the high desert, you can be in a rainforest. You could be, on a river. It's and of course, keep Portland weird. When you come to Portland, you discover that the TV show Portlandia is actually a documentary. It's not a comedy, and because it's really what this city is like, and I love it. So anyhow, that's with a $1,000 gift. But it's not the gifts that are, the important thing. I mean, it's kind of cool to get, an autographed book and all that kind of stuff, and they make great gifts to give to other people. But really what's important here is to keep this television network going and thriving. If we can hit this $10,000 a day level, which is now $14,000 a day roughly for this whole week because of how far behind we are, if we can hit that, then we can do it. 877-378-8669. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find it.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And on the line with us is Deborah Haaland. Deborah is she has won the Democratic nomination to run for Congress in New Mexico's 1st District, which makes it nearly certain that she would make history for New Mexico if she became our nation's first Native American congresswoman. She called the win for victory for working people, a victory for women, and a victory for India country. And I wanted to get her on. Deb Haaland, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And I should say your name, while it sounds like it's pronounced like the country, is spelled Haaland. Your website,
that is correct.
Right. Your website is Deb for Congress, just DEBFOR Congress.com. And people can tweet you at Deb for Congress NM, DEB number 4 Congress NM, like New Mexico. So if I've got all that right, great. So tell me what brought you to running for Congress, from the 1st District of New Mexico?
Sure. Well, I've been involved in politics here in New Mexico for a long time. I'm a grassroots organizer. I've worked on a lot of campaigns. I ran for lieutenant governor in 2014. I was the state chairwoman of the Democratic Party from 2015 to 2017. I am proud to have helped to, win a tremendous victory for our state in the 2016 elections, even though we can't say that for some of the country. But I just felt that I wanted to, after my term was up, I felt like I wanted to continue to help the people of New Mexico to fight for the things that we all care about right here in this beautiful state of ours. And so, yes, I felt like I could be a good representative because I know what it's like for probably 99% of New Mexicans in our state.
Yeah. What are the issues that you're running on, Deb?
So in our primary campaign, we have talked a tremendous amount about climate change, about moving New Mexico into 100% renewable energy. We have over 300 days of sun per year here in the land of enchantment. I've also, half of our state is Medicaid eligible. I believe that every New Mexican and every American deserves to have reliable health care. And so we've campaigned on that a great deal. And also we recognize the role that Citizens United has played in our politics. And so I'm also running on ending that, on getting huge, dark corporate money out of politics and shining some light on who's funding campaigns and how we can make sure that we're serving the people and not the big corporations all the time.
That's great stuff. And Deb, who are you running against? Who's the Republican? Is there a Republican incumbent there?
Yes, there's not a Republican incumbent. The seat belongs to Michelle Lujan Grisham right now. She's running for governor of New Mexico, and she won her primary, so she'll be up against Steve Pierce. He's actually the representative in southern New Mexico right now. Mm-hmm. So I'm confident she'll win her race for governor, and I will be the next congresswoman in her place.
That's wonderful. We're talking with Deb Haaland, the former New Mexico State Democratic Party chair, running for the U.S. Congress for New Mexico's 1st District. Deb, as a Native American, the Native American issues, in my opinion, get massive short shrift. They're very often just ignored by the corporate media, the mainstream media. I spent some time back more than a decade ago working on an Indian reservation in Arizona, and was astonished by some of the depth of some of the poverty that I saw and some of the conditions. What is the state of Indian country in general in New Mexico, and what is the state of politics around that?
Here in New Mexico, I feel fortunate, actually. We've had some wonderful governors, some wonderful activists, advocates, tribal leaders here in New Mexico who have really forged a good relationship with the state. Under Governor Bill Richardson, we had the State Tribal Collaboration Act passed, for example, and also Governor Richardson elevated the Indian Affairs to a cabinet-level position. So we have laws that protect our voters here in New Mexico, our Native American voters in New Mexico, and we contribute a tremendous amount to our economy, both through our economic endeavors and through tourism. So I feel that for the most part, the legislators, the decision makers in New Mexico realize that a good relationship with Indian tribes benefits all of us, and that's what I think they've really tried to do. So I realize it's not like that in every single state. So I am fortunate that we have that here.
Marvelous stuff. Deb Haaland, maybe our first Native American member of Congress. Do I have that right? You would be the first?
Yes.
That
woman.
First woman.
Woman. Yes.
Native American. Yeah. that caveat, but this is extraordinary. And Deb, so I just wanted to highlight and feature what you're doing. I'm assuming people want to help out. Whatever information is available at Deb for Congress, forcongress.com.
Absolutely, yes. I'd love for anyone to go to our website. You can donate on that page. That's what every campaign needs, but you know that.
Sure, whatever it may be. I'm assuming you have a Facebook page as well?
We do, yes. It's Deb Haaland for Congress.
And that's spelled Haaland.
Land, yes.
Right. Okay. Deb, great talking with you.
Thanks so much for having me. Y'all take care. Have a good day.
My pleasure. You too, and good luck. I wish you the very best. And I hope that we can have a conversation when you're in Congress. Okay, let's pick up some phone calls here. Brad in Elk Grove Village, Illinois. Hey, Brad, what's on your mind?
My thought is this. The Republicans are all about the law. Thank you. In fact,
they say they are.
I've made comments online that they worship the law more than they worship God and Jesus Christ. And that's something no one online has ever contradicted me about. And I think when you look at the law and stuff like that, it can be used as a force of control, whereas Jesus Christ was all about freedom and the ability to decide your, in this case, eternal fate. So the point is, democracy as imperfect as it is a lot closer than the Republicans, which are about the republic and the state and the security of that state.
Yeah. And, fine point, Brad. Well made. Rich in Cedro Woolley, Washington. Hey, Rich, what's up? Rich? Listening on Sirius XM? Maybe he's got his mute button jammed or something. Keith in Wilmington, Delaware. Hey, Keith, what's on your mind today?
How you doing, Tom? Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Thank you, Keith.
I just have to say that America has selective amnesia. This whole thing with the separation of children, which I do not agree with, has been going on in this country forever. Africans have been separated from their children from ever. During World War II, the Japanese were separated from their children, and in the early 70s into the 80s, before this the Russian adoption, people were having their children taken away.
Well, it's been happening in Indian country right up to the last 20 years.
It's just that, America, which I don't have no problem with it, is the greatest country in the world. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else as an African American. It's just that America makes these promises that they know they cannot keep. The hope and honor of being equal in the society is not going to happen for me or anyone that looks like that, because there's always going to be, the majority is going to look out for themselves. That's always the way it has been, and that's the way it's always going to be. We just need to stop faking it. We need to educate our people on all history of America, just not European history, because there's no empire that has been great. We just have to put it that way. Thank you for allowing me to say that.
Sure, and you said it very well, Keith. And I think you're unfortunately absolutely right. Tom in Media, Pennsylvania. Hey, Tom, what's up?
Yeah, good morning. It's afternoon out here where I am. But this immigration situation is a tough situation in terms of if someone comes over here illegally, if you cannot take the children, you cannot allow the children to stay with them in any type of custody situation. I think immigration advocates pushed that Court Cohen a while ago, correct?
No, you can. Well, first of all, the process historically was that we didn't, that we dealt with people who were in this country illegally through a process that was a civil process rather than a criminal process. They were subject to deportation. They were subject, but basically they had to show up in court. A lot of them didn't. I get that. The whole catch and release thing. But that was a way of minimizing the cost to the government. But if Trump wants, if Trump wants to make the assertion that these people are actually committing, felony crimes, and the law arguably does say that, and they should be detained, then we should have detention facilities that allow for families. It's real simple. You don't have to separate people from their children. You don't have to. We'll be back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Bob Ney will be back with us in about 4 minutes with Talk Media News to fill us in on what's going on in the day. Stick around. And welcome back. Jim in Jupiter, Florida. Hey, Jim, thanks for watching the show on YouTube. What's up?
Yeah, I'd like to suggest a book just real quick. It's Mark Lila, Once and Future Liberal is the name of his book. It came out last year, and he's talking about the Democrats gaining the initiative again. Very good book. But what I wanted to talk about was that, and I like the point that Keith was bringing up, we have been separating mothers from children in this country by the millions.
Yeah.
Not by the thousands.
Historically. Well, but see, I mean, the one thing that he was wrong about, and I didn't want to interrupt him in midstream because he was making a good point, but the one thing he was wrong about was during World War II, when we interred the Japanese, we did not separate families. And in fact, we didn't even separate communities. People were allowed to have clusters of homes within that concentration camp that reflected where they came from so that they could stay near their neighbors and relatives. I'm not saying it was a good thing or it should have happened or anything like that. What I'm saying is that it was less brutal than what we're doing right now, and we were fighting World War II, for God's sake.
That's what the reason why we're in the situation that we are now is because we've been too open about people just booking them and saying, come back in 6 months, a year, or 2 years, and we'll adjudicate your case then. And they went out in the world and worked. Well, that turned out to be a way that it just opened up the floodgates, and that's why they're being
but see, it wouldn't have happened in the first place if employers went to jail for hiring people who aren't
legally
in this country.
We all agree on the
No, we
employers.
don't, Jim. The official position of the Republican Party, and I think a lot of people in the Democratic Party, is you don't go after the employers. We have not gone after employers since 1986, when Ronald Reagan formally stopped the process of putting wealthy white people in jail for immigration violations. It ended in 1986 with Reagan's amnesty. And it's still on the books, technically. I mean, employers can still go to jail. In fact, they're committing larger and more punishable crimes than the people that they're employing. But we do not prosecute them. And people are coming to, and so that's only one category of person coming to this country. That's, the people who are seeking some sort of economic opportunity. Those people, by and large, are no longer coming to the United States. They're finding economic opportunity elsewhere. They're going to Brazil. They're going to Mexico. The people who are coming to the United States are not Mexicans anymore. Mexicans have been going back to Mexico. The people who are coming to the United States are Guatemalans, Hondurans, and El Salvadorians, and they're all coming because there's a frigging war going on in their country, largely the gangs and these insanely corrupt countries, because these countries have all had neoliberalism inflicted on them. We have inflicted on all three of these countries the austerity politics, austerity economics. When you look, we're not getting, as I said earlier, we're not getting refugees from Costa Rica. Why is that? Well, because in Costa Rica, everybody has health care, everybody has free education, and they have no army. They decided to take the money from the army and put it into health care and education, and nobody is fleeing that country. It's a functioning democratic republic. We don't like that. We don't like those kind of countries. We would much rather have, this whole neoliberal ideal of El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras that we have meddled in horrifically over the last 40 years as our experiments, just like we did with Chile in the 1960s with Pinochet. But that's what's going on. And until we fix what's going on in the countries we've broken, we're going to continue to have this problem.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by X-Chair, the X-Chair office chair. xchairtom.com is the website, xchairtom.com.
Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242 or visit tomsbeats.com.
HOMS. Oh my, what a day. Let's find out what's going on in the world more broadly today. The Talk Media News Report brought to you today by goatsfortheoldgoat.com and Ellen Ratner's new book, Loving What You Do. And on the line with us, the author of Sideswiped, the definitive book about how Washington, D.C. works, and an extraordinary political story by former Republican Congressman Bob Ney of Ohio. Congressman, welcome back to the program.
Well, thank you, Tom. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for joining us. So what's going on in the world, Bob?
Well, I know you've been talking about immigration, I'm sure, all day, and it looks like, of course, both bills are in trouble, and both of them center also, and I just wanted to mention this point, they center on legal immigration also as a focus, and I think that's been missed, and I don't think that people really know the facts of the situation of legal immigration and what's been done already. In cases around the world, our embassies have taken action to prevent students from coming here, to prevent, in some cases, fiancé visas, etc. Those are the things, Tom, that in this whole immigration debate will never be reported. Nobody will even find ways to calculate what exactly the embassies are doing. And, of course, that comes from directives from the State Department. So I just wanted to mention that. It's not in any of the
So, I mean, I believe that historically we've accepted about 1 million legal immigrants every year. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Correct. Around 1 million, yes.
About 1 million. And so, you know, I've heard that the Trump administration's policies, with a wink and a nod, have been to say to embassies, in fact, I think the reference, there was a conversation in the White House about this, and the reference was to Norway specifically. If you're a European country that is principally filled with white people, we would love to have more of your immigrants. But, you know, if you're Burkina Faso or South Sudan, you know, filled with black people, or, you know, Costa Rica, well, Costa Rica has no interest in sending people here. Their life is good in Costa Rica because they did away with their military and they've got free education and free health care. But if you're El Salvador, Guatemala, or Honduras, where we've been doing our neoliberalism experiments since the 50s and your country's been ruined by our meddling, forget it. And because your people have too much melanin in their skin. I mean, is it really that brutally racist, Bob?
Well, I think it is because I'll take an example of something I personally know of, and I've looked into this. In fact, Tom, if I was back, I literally would try to circulate with both parties a demand for statistics on what I'm about to say. There was a recent case of someone who had a 7-year relationship, all documented, and when they went for the fiancé visa in India, when they went for the fiancé visa, they were declined without any form of explanation. Now, there's a United States senator in this process, a Democratic senator that is trying to demand, you know, what is missing from the file. They simply won't be told. Then I found out that there were 4 more cases exactly of American women who had again, they didn't meet him for 30 days. They had a long-standing relationship, and all of them are being denied in the process. Students are being denied in the process.
Students just for student visas, you mean?
Student visas. And,
wow.
And there's a site, actually, that, and I can get it to you, I'll find out the name of it, where students talk about what's happening to them at the American Embassy. When they just simply are being declined.
Are these are these from countries where people have darker skin than Northern
India.
Europe?
Yes, India.
Yeah. Okay.
And again, I happened to stumble on these because I got phone calls, you know, because of being in Congress. Can you call a senator for me, or please link me up with somebody? So that's how I became aware of these. Who knows what's going on anywhere else in the world? And you can bet that the majority party is not going to ask for statistics. I wish somebody would actually do that, but you can bet the majority party won't do that. So I just wanted to mention,
you mean
there's
the Republicans?
a silent immigration. Yes,
yeah.
Republicans. There's a silent immigration process out there that I don't think anybody is tapping into the accurate information to find out what they're doing.
Extraordinary.
So I believe. And
what else is up?
Have you talked yet about the Roger Stone, Mike Caputo?
I have not.
Yet?
No, please fill us in.
I find this fascinating. They are saying one thing publicly about a meeting that had occurred with Russian, and also another part of a meeting where there was a request that they give them $2 million would be given to an intermediary who, in fact, would give Roger Stone and Caputo dirt on Hillary Clinton. Now, they told this in some type of interview, and the point that's being made today is I'm not so sure that they told that to Mueller himself, and if they didn't, that raises an entirely different spectrum with these two on the Trump investigation with Russia and collusion in the campaign.
In other words, did they lie to us or did they lie to the feds?
Well, exactly, and that's where it's going to lay to see what happens with that, because I think there's still going to be some more pressure beyond Manafort right now, and maybe a couple more indictments that are going down the road. And of course, the gerrymandering cases today, they were kicked back. One, the Wisconsin case was unanimous because of the non-legal jurisdiction of the people that actually brought the case.
Right.
Yes, and then the second one's kicked back. I don't think that's the end of it. They're waiting for a lower case, court case decision. And then have you? I don't know if you've talked about the decline in food stamps.
No.
And well, there's with the SNAP and the different programs, it's being touted basically because the economy is better. Therefore, people, in fact, are not actually applying for food, but that's not the case. It's due to the government going in and actually pressuring the situation to remove some of the food stamps through.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by X-Chair, the X-Chair office chair. xchairtom.com is the website, xchairtom.com.
Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242 or visit tomsbeets.com.
It's the Free Speech TV Fund Drive Week 2, and last week we were way behind, and we had a great Friday. I think we hit $14,000 on Friday, which is marvelous because we'd been doing $4,000. Well, we did $1,200, and $2,000 our first 2 days, and so we need to hit 10 grand a day, and we sort of caught up, but we're still about $20,000 down. For the whole fund drive as we go into this week. So we need to hit our $10,000 every day plus, an additional, say, $4,000. If we can have $14,000 days all week, then we'll be where we need to be. And that means we need a lot of help. We need a lot of folks calling in and making a lot of small gifts. Because that's how it works. That's how Bernie's campaign was funded. That's how this network is funded. And so if you want to be part of Free Speech TV, if you want to be a member of Free Speech TV, if you want to see this television network, this television show, the values, opinions, perspectives, policies that are reflected by, classic FDR progressive values here in the United States, if you want to see that and more of that, then call now, 877-378-8669. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number for Free Speech TV. It's serious stuff. The network has to raise this money. If it doesn't, the network stops. It's, obviously, first they would go through some radical cutbacks. Secondly, they'd probably have to drop all their live programming and go back to just doing documentaries. And then third, they'd turn it off. So, that's process begins if we don't hit these goals. And you don't want to see that, and neither do I. So please call 877-378-8669. We've got some goodies for you, some special, or you can go to freespeech.org/donate. Some special gifts that at different giving levels. They're the same as they were last week. With the $30 gift, you get the Is That True? Or did you hear that on Fox News? Refrigerator magnet. With a $72 gift, you get the Free Speech TV water bottle. With a $120 gift, or $10 a month for the next year, you get a book. You get the Thom Hartmann Reader, autographed by Tom. That's me. I'm guessing you figured that out. With a $20 a month gift for a year, or $240, you get Howard Zinn's A People's History book. This is I think, the best history of the United States that's ever been written. Howard Zinn was an absolute genius. And a DVD that goes along with it about the people's history of the United States. Plus, Reverend William Barber's book, the pastor from, I believe it's North Carolina, it might be South Carolina. But he's been a guest on our program a number of times, and the leader of the whole, moral, I think it was Moral Monday was how it started out, movement, and he is just doing great stuff. And he has a new book out. It's called The Third Reconstruction. And you're going to want to get and read this book. That's with a $240 gift. With a $360 gift, or $30 a month for a year, you get all of the books mentioned. My book, Howard Zinn's book, Reverend Barber's book, all of them, plus the DVD with a Howard Zinn book. That's with a $360 gift. It's the all books combo. And with a $480 gift, or $40 a month for a year, you get the Everything Kit, which is all the books that we just talked about. My book, Reverend Barber's book, Howard Zinn's book, the DVD for Howard Zinn's book, plus the Free Speech TV Fox News magnet. Is that true, or did you hear it on Fox News? Plus the water bottle. That's the $480 or $40 a month for a year gift level. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland. Boy, muscle memory there. Come to Portland, Oregon, and I do occasionally get back to D.C., but not enough to predictably organize a meeting. So come to Portland, and I'll take you to lunch. It's a great city to see. It's just a beautiful city, a beautiful part of the country, actually. Within a 1-hour drive from Portland, you can be in the mountains, you can be on a glacier, you can be on the seacoast, you can be in a desert, the high desert, you could be in a rainforest. You could be, on a river. It's and of course, keep Portland weird. When you come to Portland, you discover that the TV show Portlandia is actually a documentary. It's not a comedy, and because it's really what this city is like, and I love it. So anyhow, that's with a $1,000 gift. But it's not the gifts that are, the important thing. I mean, it's kind of cool to get, an autographed book and all that kind of stuff, and they make great gifts to give to other people. But really what's important here is to keep this television network going and thriving. If we can hit this $10,000 a day level, which is now $14,000 a day roughly for this whole week because of how far behind we are, if we can hit that, then we can do it. 877-378-8669. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back to the third hour of our program. Thom Hartmann here with you. Johann Hari is the author of Lost Connections, a new book. The subtitle is The Science Behind Depression Exposed. His previous book, Chasing the Scream, kind of got close to some of these topics. And after the suicide of Anthony Bourdain, in fact, there's been kind of a rash of recent celebrity suicides, and the news story, which we talked about on this program a couple of weeks ago, the major story in the New York Times, about how suicide rates in the particularly among white men in the formerly industrial part of the country, but also in Appalachia, across the country, are on a rise. You know, what the heck is going on here? Johann Hari, welcome back to the program.
Hi, Tom. It's great to be back with you.
It's great having you with us. You have not just studied this extensively, but written a brilliant book about it. To what extent do you think that this, there's to broadly categorize kind of endogenous depression that comes from within us, depression that is the result of the consequence of something largely or purely biological. And then there is exogenous depression that is the consequence of things that have happened to us. And maybe, I don't know, a third category, I guess it would fall into exogenous, but maybe depression caused by the way we eat, the way we live, drugs we're taking, whatever. Where are we at? What's the state of depression in America, and what are you finding as a major cause? And that's not even to get into Wilkerson and Pickett's work on how inequality produces depression.
Well, I wanted to understand this for a very personal reason. You know, when I was a teenager, I'd gone to my doctor and I'd explained that I had this feeling like pain was leaking out of me, that I couldn't control it or regulate it. I felt very ashamed of it. And my doctor told me a story that most of your listeners who've had depression will have been told, an entirely biological story about why I felt this way. My doctor said it was just a problem in my brain. And for 13 years, I took the maximum possible dose of chemical antidepressants that you can. I got a bit of relief from them, but I remained depressed. So I was kind of puzzled by a few mysteries, really. Why was I still depressed when I was doing everything I was being told to do by my doctor, by the culture? And also, you know, I'm 39 years old. The bigger mystery was every year that I've been alive, depression and anxiety have increased across the Western world, and particularly here in the United States. And obviously the suicide rate is one of the most terrible indicators of the extreme edge of that. So I ended up going on this big journey across the world. I wanted to meet the leading experts about what causes depression and anxiety and what solves them, and just people with very different perspectives all over the world. And I learned lots of things, but I learned there's actually scientific evidence for 9 different causes of depression and anxiety. Well, my doctors told me that there's biological factors in depression isn't wrong. There are real biological factors that can make depression worse. But what I learned is actually only 2 of the factors that are causing depression and anxiety to rise so much are biological. The rest are factors in the way we live. And I go through them, obviously, in my book, Lost Connections. And once you understand what these causes are, it opens up a very different set of solutions. And obviously, I can go through some of the specific causes, but I think at the heart of it, for many of these causes, not all, is everyone listening to your show knows they've got natural physical needs, right? You need food, you need water, you need shelter, you need clean air. If I took any of those things away from you, you'd be in real trouble real fast. But there's equally strong evidence that human beings have natural psychological needs. You need to feel you belong. You need to feel your life has meaning and purpose. You need to feel that people see you and value you. You need to feel you've got a future that makes sense. And this culture we've built, this very neoliberal culture, is getting less and less good at meeting these deep underlying psychological needs that people have. And I think that's at the heart of why this epidemic of suicide and depression and anxiety is rising year after year. And that opens up a very different set of solutions that I've seen being tried all over the world that deal with these deep underlying causes.
For example?
Well, I'll give you one example. We are the loneliest society there has ever been. There's a study that asks Americans, how many close friends do you have who you could call on in a crisis? And when they started doing this study years ago, the most common answer was 5. Today, the most common answer is none. There are more people who have nobody to turn to than any other option.
Wow.
And we are, as human beings, a social species. We evolved to live in tribes. In the circumstances where we evolved, if you were cut off and separated from the tribe, you were depressed and anxious for a really good reason. You were about to die, right? These are our natural physical impulses. So I wanted to figure out, there's a lot of evidence. Professor John Cacioppo at the University of Chicago is one of the leading figures showing this, that that loneliness causes depression and anxiety. So I wanted to find out, well, what's the antidepressant for that, right? What can we do about that? And one of the heroes of my book, Lost Connections, is a doctor who pioneered an approach based on this. Sam Everington is a doctor in a poor part of East London, where I'm from in Britain. And Sam was very uncomfortable because he had loads of patients coming to him with terrible depression and anxiety. And like me, he's not opposed to chemical antidepressants, but he could see that on their own they were not solving the problem. He decided to pioneer a different approach. There was an area behind the doctor's surgery that was just kind of like scrubland where dogs would go and mess. And one day a woman came to him called Lisa Cunningham, who had been shut away in her home with terrible depression and anxiety for 7 years. And Sam said to Lisa, don't worry, I'll carry on giving you these drugs. I'm also going to do something else. I'm going to prescribe you to take part in a group. This area behind the surgery, what I'd like you to do is turn up a couple of times a week with other depressed and anxious people. I'm going to turn out with you, and we're going to turn this area into something beautiful. The first time the group met, Lisa was literally physically sick with anxiety. But a couple of things happened as the weeks and months passed. First thing was, the people in that program decided they realized they had something to talk about that wasn't how bad they felt. They decided they were going to learn gardening. They were going to turn this into a beautiful garden. These were inner city people that didn't know anything about gardening. They started to get their fingers in the soil. They started to learn the rhythms of the seasons. There's a lot of evidence exposure to the natural world is a really powerful antidepressant. Even more powerfully, they started to form a tribe. They started to form a group. They started to look after each other and care about each other and notice when they weren't there. The way Lisa put it to me, as the garden began to bloom, we began to bloom. There was a study in Norway of a very similar program that found it was more than twice as effective as chemical antidepressants. And this is something I saw in the research for my book, Lost Connections, all over the world, from San Francisco to Sydney to Sao Paulo. The most effective strategies for dealing with depression and anxiety are the ones that deal with the reasons why we're depressed and anxious in the first place. And that requires us to explain to people, if you're depressed, if you're anxious, you're not crazy. You're not a machine with broken parts. You're a human being with unmet needs. And what you need is love, support, and lots of practical help to get those deeper needs met. And I go through in my book, Lost Connections, obviously lots of different ways we can do that. But there is evidence from all over the world that these strategies work.
How effective are these sorts of things? We're talking with Johanna Hari, the author of Lost Connections. How effective are these strategies for people who have been told, well, like yourself? I mean, for years you struggled with depression. You were told that it was just a chemical imbalance. I get whenever, for example, whenever there's a school shooting and it's been shown that the kid was taking an antidepressant, particularly the SSRIs, which are black boxed for suicide, and there seems to be a correlation between taking SSRI drugs and this loss of affect, which might lead somebody to not view the people they're shooting as actual human beings. And whenever we talk about that, I get all these people calling in going, I was terribly depressed, I was suicidal, I started on Prozac, and I've been great for the last 2 years. Speak to that.
Yeah, I think we need to think about chemical antidepressants a bit differently to how we have up to now. Chemical antidepressants give real relief to some people. They gave me some relief, but they didn't solve the problem for me. They gave me some relief, but they didn't solve the problem. All the long-term research into chemical antidepressants suggests I was quite normal. About 65% of people given these drugs, if you look at the long-term research, do become depressed again. Doesn't mean the drug didn't give some help. Doesn't mean there isn't a significant number of people who are given help. But it's not solving the problem for most of us, as you can see from the fact that, we've had 30 years of every year prescribing more and more antidepressants, and every year depression has continued to rise. Doesn't mean the drugs haven't given some help. It's just not enough to solve the problem. One of the people who really helped me to think differently about this was this wonderful South African psychiatrist I went to interview called Derek Summerfield. Dr. Summerfield happened to be in Cambodia in 2001 when they first introduced chemical antidepressants in that country. And the local doctors, the Cambodian doctors, had never heard of these drugs. So he explained what they were. And they said to him, "Oh, we don't need them. We've already got antidepressants." And he said, "What do you mean?" He thought they were going to talk about some kind of herbal remedy or something. Instead, they told him a story. There was a farmer in their community who one day stood on a landmine and got his leg blown off. So they gave him an artificial leg, and he went back to work in the rice fields. But apparently, it's very painful to work underwater when you've got an artificial leg. I'm guessing it's pretty traumatic for obvious reasons. The guy started to cry all day, didn't want to get out of bed. Classic depression, right? They said to Derek, "Dr. Summerfield, so we gave him an antidepressant." And he said, "Well, what?" They explained that they went and sat with him. They listened to him. They realized that his pain made sense. They figured if they bought him a cow, he could become a dairy farmer. He wouldn't be in this position that was causing him so much distress. So they bought him a cow. Within a couple of weeks, his crying stopped. Within a month, his depression was gone. They said to Derek, "So you see, doctor, that cow, that was an antidepressant, right? Now, if you've been raised to think about depression the way we have, that sounds crazy, right? You know, I went to my doctor for an antidepressant, he gave me a cow." But what those Cambodian doctors knew intuitively is what the leading medical body in the world, the World Health Organization, has been trying to tell us for years. If you're depressed, if you're anxious, like I say, you're not crazy. We've got to understand the deep underlying factors that are driving up this depression, anxiety, and suicide epidemic. The biology of human beings in the United States did not change in the last 30 years, right? We didn't suddenly all have defective brains just spontaneously. What happened is a whole range of social factors that cause depression and anxiety have increased. I go through the science in Lost Connections. If you go to work tomorrow and you have low or no control over your work, you are much more likely to become depressed and anxious. If you had a traumatic childhood and you haven't been given a place where you can release the shame that that causes in people, you are much more likely to become depressed and anxious and much more likely to commit suicide. If you're acutely lonely, there's a whole range of these options, a whole range of these causes that I go through for which there's very strong scientific evidence. And talking about just the biology is real. Of course, your genes can make you more vulnerable to depression and anxiety. There are real changes in the brain that begin once you become depressed that can make it somewhat harder to get out.
Johan, we're out of time. Hang on just a second.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Our guest, Johan Hari, his book, Lost Connections, The Science Behind Depression Exposed. It's absolutely brilliant. TheLostConnections.com. Thank you, Johan.
Thank you so much, Tom.
And welcome back. Ann in Texarkana, Texas. Hey, Ann, thanks for watching Free Speech TV. What's up?
I have your book about the Native Americans. My father was born in 1883 at Standing Rock.
Mm-hmm.
And his father was European. His mother was Lakota.
Mm-hmm.
When his father, after Wounded Knee, they were forced to leave the reservation. She had 9 boys besides my father and 3 girls. Now, they talk about taking the children away. Children's Aid Society was great at that. I have a paper that was taken from their files about the taking of my uncles. And because when their father died, they told his mother Indians weren't fit to raise children. So they took them, and we've never heard from them again.
Wow.
And, you know, they want to talk about it. Try the Children's Aid Society trains, the baby trains. This is nothing new. This is nothing new.
Yeah.
And my father, the only place he was in 13 years old in the Spanish-American War. He was in World War I, World War II, and called back in to service when I was 3 years old, which I never saw him again.
Oh, my.
But this is not, this is nothing new. And if we can't stand up to what we've done in the past, how are we going to go to the future?
Amen. You're absolutely right, Ann. The whole boarding school thing that started in the late 19th century, I believe.
He was 9 years old and beaten with a bullwhip because he wouldn't. When they took him and his older sister, before the younger ones were born, away from their mother when he was out on the trading wagons, he paid $100 apiece to get his two children back.
Wow.
And Jimmy was beaten with a whip by the priest. So I've got no respect for them either.
Yeah.
Because he would not bow down to their ways of being. And so many of these kids in the Indian schools were so badly treated and forced away from their families. And it's not only there, it's New York. It's all the places that these baby trains. I've done so much research on family stories. I've got 200 pages of the stories improving what actually happened. If we can't do something about these children, we can't call ourselves godly, in my opinion.
This would be a great moment in time for a good documentary on this very topic that you're talking about, the horrors of the boarding schools and the baby trains and all that stuff that happened right here in the United States. Australia went through a reckoning on this stuff back 20, 30 years ago and formally apologized to their Aboriginal people and stopped the process of separating them. A friend of mine in Australia was taken away from his mother when he was 2 years old because he was half Aboriginal. I'm with you, Ann. Ann, thank you for the story. Thank you for sharing it with us. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and Jill in Princeton, Minnesota. Hey, Jill, what's on your mind today?
Amen to today's show, Tom.
Thank you, Jill.
In reference to they thought they were free, I can see horrid futures for America if many of us, we the people, continue to believe the illusion, horrid possible futures. But I also see a positive, caring, moral, and just America if we the people could do one simple thing, and that's to sign the Move to Amend petition that says that corporations have no business obtaining the same rights as persons, and money is not the same thing as speech.
Amen. This is why I keynoted their conference in Washington, D.C. last week.
Yes, wonderful. I know. Thank you so much. What will that do for America then? What will we look like? What will we look like if we pass the 28th Amendment to the United States Constitution? Sign the Move to Amend petition. Get one more person to sign it. Get someone to sign it who doesn't have the luxury of being informed for whatever reason. And let's start talking about what we will look like in the future if we did pass the 28th Amendment.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom.
You're welcome. Thanks, Jill. Very well said. I appreciate the call. Erwin in Missoula, Montana. Hey, Erwin, what's up?
Yes, Tom. Say, a long-time listener.
Thank you.
Started when George W. Bush was in office.
Oh, my.
Went to sleep during the Obama years, and I'm back.
Okay. Well, welcome back, Erwin. What's on your mind?
Thank you. Yes. I'm like a lot of people want to do something. I noticed right after Madeleine Albright had brought her book out, I thought soon there would be a poll by somebody about people in the U.S., their thoughts about if we're headed towards a fascism or a dictatorship. I just expected that, and it never occurred. Last night, I actually wrote to some of the polling companies, and I noticed that there's one specifically with the Democratic Party, and it's just to me it seems like something that should be done. I think with a poll, it kind of makes it real maybe to some people, and they might start thinking about it. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I have not read Madeleine Albright's book, and I really should, and we should get her on this program. It's been a while since the book came out, but I'm guessing she's still perfectly willing to promote her book, and I've heard good things about it. I'd love to get a copy of it. That she, at the very least, I saw a clip of her some months ago when the book did come out on television, saying, using the kind of language that you're using, Erwin. So, which I think we should all be tremendously concerned about, the idea that the United States is actually becoming a fascistic country. And we're doing it in large part as a consequence of this whole, neoliberal experiment that was inflicted upon us with Reaganism in the 1980s. And, let's diminish the size of government and let's expand the power and size of the corporate state and the billionaire class. And the idea being that will produce a better outcome, at least for the very wealthy. And it has. It's produced a dramatically, Erwin, thanks for the call, dramatically better income, situation for the very wealthy. But for the rest of us, for anybody who's not making a couple $100,000 or a few $1,000,000 a year, life in the United States has gotten harder and harder and harder every year for the last 30 some odd years since Reagan. And we've got to address that.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Everything from crime to depression. I mean, this is real stuff that is the result of these neoliberal policies. It's the Free Speech TV Fund Drive Week 2, and last week we were way behind, and we had a great Friday. I think we hit $14,000 on Friday, which is marvelous because we'd been doing $4,000. Well, we did $1,200, and $2,000 our first 2 days, and so we need to hit 10 grand a day, and we sort of caught up, but we're still about $20,000 down, and for the whole fund drive as we go into this week. So we need to hit our $10,000 every day plus, an additional, say, $4,000. If we can have $14,000 days all week, then we'll be where we need to be. And that means we need a lot of help. We need a lot of folks calling in and making a lot of small gifts. Because that's how it works. That's how Bernie's campaign was funded. That's how this network is funded. And so if you want to be part of Free Speech TV, if you want to be a member of Free Speech TV, if you want to see this television network, this television show, the values, opinions, perspectives, policies that are reflected by, classic FDR progressive values here in the United States, if you want to see that and more of that, then call now, 877-378-8669. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number for Free Speech TV. It's serious stuff. The network has to raise this money. If it doesn't, the network stops. It's, obviously first they would go through some radical cutbacks. Secondly, they'd probably have to drop all their live programming and go back to just doing documentaries. And then third, they'd turn it off. So, that's process begins if we don't hit these goals, and you don't want to see that, and neither do I. So please call 877-378-8669. We've got some goodies for you, some special, or you can go to freespeech.org/donate. Some special gifts that at different giving levels, they're the same as they were last week. With the $30 gift, you get the Is That True? Or did you hear that on Fox News? Refrigerator magnet. With a $72 gift, you get the Free Speech TV water bottle. With a $120 gift, or $10 a month for the next year, you get a book. You get the Thom Hartmann Reader, autographed by Tom. That's me. I'm guessing you figured that out. With a $20 a month gift for a year, or $240, you get Howard Zinn's A People's History book. This is I think, the best history of the United States that's ever been written. Howard Zinn was an absolute genius. And a DVD that goes along with it about the people's history of the United States. Plus, Reverend William Barber's book, the pastor from, I believe it's North Carolina, might be South Carolina. But he's been a guest on our program a number of times, and the leader of the whole, moral, I think it was Moral Monday was how it started out, movement, and he is just doing great stuff. And he has a new book out. It's called The Third Reconstruction. And you're going to want to get and read this book. That's with a $240 gift. With a $360 gift, or $30 a month for a year, you get all of the books mentioned. My book, Howard Zinn's book, Reverend Barber's book, all of them, plus the DVD with the Howard Zinn book. That's with a $360 gift. It's the all books combo. And with a $480 gift, or $40 a month for a year, you get the Everything Kit, which is all the books that we just talked about. My book, Reverend Barber's book, Howard Zinn's book, the DVD for Howard Zinn's book, plus the Free Speech TV Fox News magnet. Is that true, or did you hear it on Fox News? Plus the water bottle. That's the $480 or $40 a month for a year gift level. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland. Boy, muscle memory there. Come to Portland, Oregon, and I do occasionally get back to D.C., but not enough to predictably organize a meeting. So come to Portland, and I'll take you to lunch. It's a great city to see. It's just a beautiful city, a beautiful part of the country, actually. Within a 1-hour drive from Portland, you can be in the mountains, you can be on a glacier, you can be on the seacoast, you can be in a desert, the high desert, you could be in a rainforest. You could be, on a river. It's and of course, keep Portland weird. When you come to Portland, you discover that the TV show Portlandia is actually a documentary. It's not a comedy, and because it's really what this city is like, and I love it. So anyhow, that's with a $1,000 gift. But it's not the gifts that are, the important thing. I mean, it's kind of cool to get, an autographed book and all that kind of stuff, and they make great gifts to give to other people. But really what's important here is to keep this television network going and thriving. If we can hit this $10,000 a day level, which is now $14,000 a day roughly for this whole week because of how far behind we are, if we can hit that, then we can do it. 877-378-8669. Thank you. Wow, Congressman Ted Lieu. Dear Secretary Nielsen, I don't give a bleep, the S word, the 4-letter S word, for excrement. I don't give a bleep if you apologize. We just need you to reverse your policy of ripping kids away from parents. Also, how do you go from saying such a policy doesn't exist to now saying that you won't apologize for it? Why all the lies from Homeland Security? That's amazing. A member of Congress coming right out and challenging the head of the Department of Homeland Security, the umbrella agency for what, 34, 28, whatever it is, different intelligence agencies and police agencies that we have. That's absolutely astonishing. Brenda in Newport News, Virginia. Hey, Brenda, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. First, I want to thank you for all the stuff you bring us. I almost forget what I want to talk about every time I call you because you're giving us so much information.
Well, thank you, Brenda.
I wanted to talk about something that happened when I was 9 years old. I questioned my teacher about why we call our country America and why we call ourselves Americans when America stretches from the Arctic Circle all the way down nearly to Antarctica.
Right.
And I want us to really think about, to me it's like a privilege that we've claimed when we talk about America and Americans, I want people to think about the fact that those people that we are ripping children away from are Americans, just like we are. The Canadians that we are declaring trade sanctions on in Mexico, that we're declaring trade, those are Americans as well. I don't know how we consider that we can call ourselves Americans when we're doing more ecologically, economically, trade-wise, and immigration-wise to make ourselves less American than ever before.
Yeah. Brenda, at a point of legal technicality and cultural and social technicality in the minds of Canadians and Mexicans, at least a few that I've talked with over the years, you are absolutely right. They think of themselves as, at the very least, North Americans or Americans, you know, the entire Western Hemisphere, obviously, North America and South America. But neither of those countries have the word America in their names, and we do. And that's the reason that citizens of the United States of America don't call ourselves United Statesians or Unitedians. You got to come up with something, and so we call ourselves Americans. And, you know, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with it, but it's not, you know, we're not going to change our use of that language, and the rest of the world is not either. I mean, I've literally traveled all over the planet, and everywhere I go, people don't say, are you a citizen of the United States? They say, are you an American? 100% of the time. So I get your point. And I think that, you know, the more broadly speaking, I mean, we went through this in the 1880s with the Chinese Exclusion Act. We went through this in the 1850s in the blowback against the first wave of major wave of Irish immigration into the United States after the potato famine in, I think it was 1847, where we went through these huge anti-immigrant things. And ultimately, it's not just, you know, we should have a rational immigration policy that includes people in the Americas. It's that we should have a rational immigration policy from people from all over the world. And this is what Bob Ney was pointing out, is that, you know, the embassies in those countries where people have darker skin than I do are denying people even spousal visas. And the embassies in those countries where people have skin the color of mine or lighter, or hair that's lighter, those are being encouraged to encourage inward immigration, apparently. And Bob is trying to figure out, you know, some statistics on this, some figures on it. We don't have them. But I get your point. Brenda, thank you for the call. Well said. Ray in McHenry, Illinois. Hey, Ray, what's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Tom. Hello?
Yeah, you're on the air.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I was that guest you had on. Have you ever heard of rational emotive behavioral therapy and education by Dr. Albert Ellis?
I have.
Yeah, okay. Well, the whole premise of that, it has to do with wants versus needs, and it really related to what your guest was talking about. Picture a vertical column divided into 3 sections, and at the bottom it's don't care, the middle is want, and the top is need. Now, air would be at the top of the need column. You die in a few minutes if you don't have air. Water would be a little bit below that, and food below that. And then a lot of other things are really just wants. Now, even something like love or people's acceptance and approval, those are really nice things to have, but people go lifetimes without having as much as they'd like to.
But they're damaged or wounded by it.
Yeah, that's true. Now,
so I would say that that's a need, not a want.
Well, it depends. Here's why that's important, though. Because if you start, what people do in their minds is they start to elevate that to the same level as air, water, or food, especially air.
Well, if you're not getting a need met on a regular basis, that's what happens, Ray. I mean, you know, if we want to do dueling psychologists here, you know, what's his name? I just scared it out of me. Abraham Maslow, who came up with a hierarchy of human needs, and you know that his students did as a pyramid. He used to flunk students who would do it as a pyramid. He saw it as a line, but you know he's dead now, so it's everybody who does it as a pyramid. But at the base of Maslow's pyramids are what he calls the biological needs. You know, the need to breathe, to drink, to excrete, to eat, and to maintain a stable body temperature. One step up from that are the social needs, the needs to have family, to have relationship, you know, and one step up from that are the cognitive needs, to be intellectually engaged and all that kind of thing, and then one step up from that are the spiritual needs at the very peak, you know, the need for self-actualization. And I'm probably mangling Maslow's theory. It's been a lot of years since I read his work, but the critical point that he makes is that wherever you are on the pyramid, as long as you are in a state of need, everything above that point becomes invisible. So, in other words, if you can't breathe, you're not thinking about spiritual enlightenment, you're not thinking about the need for friendships. If you can't eat, you're not thinking about the need for friendship or spiritual enlightenment. On the other hand, if you don't have friendships or relationships with close people, you're not thinking about spiritual enlightenment or self-actualization. So whatever, but you do have under control the need to breathe and eat. And I think that's real, Ray.
Here's what I'm trying to say, Tom. The purpose of emotion is to give us energy to move, to deal with threats in our life, to get what we want and need. What people do in their minds is they elevate some things from, even Maslow had different levels, and they elevate things like love and acceptance to the level of air in their mind. What that does, it creates a much bigger threat than exists to them at the moment, and that's how they end up getting angry instead of just frustrated or irritated. That's how they get depressed.
I think you're describing Donald Trump's life story, Ray.
Well, I don't know how
he had a distant father. He went off to military school every year. His parents got rid of him. They didn't want him around. His older brother drank himself to death as a consequence of his upbringing. And during the summer when Donald was home, his mother left. She didn't want him around, and she went to Scotland every summer. So this is. Go ahead.
Yeah, the whole thing of like REBT though is that it goes back to something Shakespeare said. Expectation is the root of all, anguish or something like that. Mm-hmm. And the point is, if we can teach people to, not elevate their wants, preferences, desires, or something, even if you want to call it a need, not to elevate it to the level of air in their lives. Yes,
no, I get that concept, Ray, and I understand it and don't disagree with it. But that said, if people have needs, and this was the point of Johan Hari's book, and it's also the point of Bowling Alone by, I want to say Robert Draper. I'm probably getting that wrong, but that was a book that came out in the 80s or 90s, Bowling Alone, big New York Times bestseller, and it was the same thing. It was about how our society is becoming more fragmented, and it was the death of the bowling league, and the death of the VFW, and the death of the Moose, and all these civic organizations that gave people a sense of purpose and meaning. Ray, I got to move along, but it's an interesting and provocative notion. Robbie in Portland, Oregon. Hey, Robbie, what's up?
I just wanted to mention, first, the immigration thing is a huge issue going on. They are deporting people at rates that are going to soon exceed the Obama administration. I'm going down to the local ICE thing to protest that. But I wanted to bring up the Russian election interference. We had talked previously a couple months ago, but it seems as though the election interference that Russia did, and correct me if I'm wrong, was they hacked the DNC servers. They were trying to get dirt on Hillary, and then they published through WikiLeaks the damaging information, which then bots pushed on social media to damage Hillary Clinton. Is that right?
I think that's half of what's alleged. The other half is that this internet hacker troll for hire, I guess, company, the research Internet Research Bureau, the IRB, a Russian company, that anybody can hire, and they'll deploy thousands of bots, on Facebook or on Twitter, that they were doing this. And the question is, were they paid for by the Russian government, or were they being paid for by some oligarch that Paul Manafort hired? And we don't yet know the answer to that.
Tom. Here's my point, Tom. The Russian election interference was simply damaging information about Hillary rigging the primary election. Is that right?
It's not entirely right, but that's a good piece of it, yeah.
Well, because here's what's, we're talking about the Russian election interference, and you know damn well that we interfered with the Ukraine election,
among others,
which is why, and sorry for cussing, but that's, then you look at why did Russia do this and why do they want this? And it's just like, well, look at what America did. And I'm not trying to support Russia in any of this, but I do want to say that the only damaging information that hurt Hillary was the fact that she rigged the Democratic primary.
Well, I think that was, when the possibility or reality of that became evident, I think it soured a lot of people. But The main thing, though, Robbie, was that almost everything, every day it was some new, quote, scandal. And these were largely, just Republican hyperventilating stuff, Fox News. But it was just this steady drip, drip, drip. Robbie, thanks for the call.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And if your point, by the way, was, hey, if Hillary had never done anything wrong, then the Russian intervention wouldn't have mattered, I strongly disagree. And welcome back, Chris in Austin, Texas. Hey, Chris, thanks for watching us on Free Speech TV. What's up?
Hey, Tom. You mentioned earlier in passing about the difficulty of voting, and I wanted to bring up the subject of the rather mundane mechanics of how we go about voting and how it doesn't get much attention in the press because it is so mundane. And after the 2000 Florida vote, the punch card debacle that left us with a hanging Chad, which sounds like some kind of stage name for a male porn star. Rather than, they came up with the Help America Vote Act. And rather than saying, give the voter a piece of paper and a pencil, which can't be hacked in any way, and let them mark a paper ballot with a pencil, but instead they come up with all these gizmos, these black box machines, these computerized systems with touch screens and Diebold, and with no paper trail.
Yep.
And
and then we had massive redshift in the states that were using those machines.
Yeah, and they have this express vote that, supposedly prints out a paper summary that shows a list of names that the voters selected, and then they put that summary card into a counting machine, and but the machine is actually counting barcodes that the voter cannot read, and so the voter has to go on faith that those barcodes actually match the names that they see printed on that card. And, they don't know if they've just voted for candidate A or a sack of potatoes. So I've got a real problem, and it's a mundane subject, and so it doesn't get a lot of attention. It doesn't have that emotional appeal.
Here's the frame for it, Chris, that can produce that. What we are looking at is the privatization of our elections. Now, the whole point of government is to protect the commons, right? To protect the stuff we all collectively own, the air, the water, and provide for a public commons, public roads and parks and bridges and infrastructure and stuff like that. And the most important part of the commons itself is the government, right, which is administering it and owns it. And the most important part of the government is the mechanism by which we select who are the governors, who are the people who are making these decisions on our behalf and are acting on our behalf in our defense of the commons and the environment. And that has been privatized. That is the vote. That is the Thomas. Well, actually, there have been numerous over the years referred to this as the beating heart of democracy, right? The beating heart of democracy, and that has been privatized, and that's the original sin here. We never should have privatized the vote. It had always been a government function before the Help America Vote Act. It should still be a government function. Chris, your points are really, really well made and really well thought out, but there needs to be a simple, package that you put around this little bow on it. It's privatizing our votes. They are now in the hands of private for-profit corporations. How is that a good thing? It's not.
The The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com. The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by XChair, the XChair office chair. XChairTom.com is the website, XChairTHOM.com. Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242 or visit tomsbeets.com. Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
I'm here with you. Viagra for your brain, but don't tell Limbaugh, he'll want some. Harry in Eureka, California. Hey, Harry, what's on your mind?
Thank you. It was my impression that at one point during World War II, when they were putting yellow stars on the sleeves of people about to be executed, that a group of people who were not Jewish went in solidarity, and they simultaneously put yellow stars on their sleeves in solidarity with that, and thus confused the government. What about the chance of doing that for the brown and the migrants and the poor people? Couldn't we do something like that? Not a crucifix, but literally the yellow star without the word Juden in it. Wouldn't that be something that we could visually show that we're at odds with what's going on?
It would be, and the use of symbols is a powerful, powerful thing. Just look at the Tea Party. You know, they used the tea bag as the symbol, and you know, it became the logo of the movement. I'm not sure that the yellow star is the appropriate one, Harry, but it may well be. You know, but whether this movement is even going to, I mean, the teabagging movement, the Tea Party movement, became a big deal because it had, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars behind it. It was being funded by billionaires. On our end, we've got, you know, I doubt anybody who's going to turn this into a logo. But what we can do and what we should do is be registered to vote and be sure to get out there and vote and vote the bums out of office. I mean, these Republicans who are behaving like sociopaths, you know, it's like enough already. Thank you for the call, Harry. Carol in Menneson, Pennsylvania. Hey, Carol, what's on your mind?
Hi, Tom. You mentioned the beating heart of democracy.
Yes, Thomas Paine's
I think it's on
phrase.
life support right now.
Yeah, I agree.
You were mentioning Sophie's Choice, and I had the same reaction you did when I first saw it. I recently bought that movie on, I think it was eBay I bought it on.
Mm-hmm.
And it is very relevant, and people should really watch it. I hope they do post it on Showtime or HBO.
Yeah.
But there's a movie on right now on Showtime called The Zookeeper's Life. Have you seen that?
I have not.
Oh, you have to. It's a great film. It takes place in Warsaw during World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And it is just excellent, and it's a true story. And I highly recommend everyone see that because that's also relevant.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they did take children from their parents then, too, in Warsaw.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay,
But,
I'll have to check it out. Carol, thank you.
Yeah, do so. It's
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate the call. Jim in Littleton, Colorado. Hey, Jim, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I hope I can repeat it as good as I did to the other guy. I just wanted to complain about, you know, this voting thing, you know, interfering with our voter, the Russians. And I'm like, I don't blame the Russians for interfering. Would you want Hillary in, who's yelling bomb Russia, and Trump, who's wanting to do business with him? Who would you want if you were a Russian? You know, and they only spent $25 million, nothing. I laughed when I heard the amount of money they spent. I said, we spend $1 billion for each candidate, and we're sitting there crying about 25 days. Let me get $25 million up, and I'll become president.
Yeah, there you go. Well, Jim, that's not going to happen. But you know, I get your point, and yeah, I think Vladimir Putin had a real problem with Hillary Clinton. I get that, and we did mess in the Ukraine, and I get that. But all that said, we cannot allow foreign countries, and in my opinion, we cannot allow foreign billionaires or even domestic billionaires to gain control of our elections. And that's essentially what has happened. And the Supreme Court has made it possible, has facilitated it. And in fact, if you read the dissent, John Paul Stevens' dissent in Citizens United, the 2010 case, October 2010, you can read it on the Supreme Court's site. He said in his dissent, if this decision stands, you are going to have foreign governments seizing control of our elections. The example he uses is Tokyo Rose, the Japanese propagandist during World War II, would have been a legitimate funder of an American political candidate, and that is just fundamentally wrong, and I agree. Richard in Greenville, Michigan. Hey, Richard, thanks for listening to WPRR.
Yeah,
what's on your mind?
I'm wondering, well, first, two quick questions. Could it be that Trump has enacted this inhuman policy of taking away children to desensitize his base?
I think what has happened is that they have overstepped. And I think that they did this on Stephen Miller's advice. I believe him to be the architect of this process. I could be wrong, but I think that they've overstepped, Richard. I think that they've gone too far. And you had the Secretary of Homeland Security this morning defending this practice, and it's just astonishing. And then you get a Democratic member of Congress using obscenities in a tweet about it. That's just incredible. We'll be back tomorrow. In the meantime, don't forget democracy is not a spectator sport. Get out there, get active, tag you're it. See you tomorrow.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by X-Chair, the X-Chair office chair. xchairtom.com is the website, xchairtom.com.
Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242
or visit tomsbeets.com.